Okay, sorry. Um.
Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
Yamato, where's your camera?
I have this. I don't need a camera.
Yeah, Yamato, where's your beer?
Oh no. Okay, hold on.
I don't drink. I just said that for dramatic effect.
Oh, really? Oh, were you just making fun of me?
No.
Oh, okay.
Maybe.
Okay.
Real quick, everybody check.
Hey,
everybody
Tom!
check general real quick for me, please.
Okay, checking.
Yeah, I know. We're not doing Twitch.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I'm not. Me and Wick aren't streaming on Twitch, so you're
Okay, good. I heard Sprouticus's voice and I heard Wick's voice, and I was like, "Oh no, dude! Did nobody tell them?"
No, I'm aware. Don't worry.
I'm not turning on my camera.
I knew you were banned on. I knew you were banned on Twitch, and I texted Yamato, and I'm like, "Hey, listen, this isn't Twitch friendly, and you should probably tell people."
I didn't know Tom Foolery was on the thing.
Taj invited last minute because we had a hard time finding people saying yes to the anti-map perspective.
There was one other
perspective.
Wow.
There
was
yeah.
No. Well, there was one other person. There was one other person, but Sprout, you know how she gets.
Who?
Okay. You know who? Alexa.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's a different person. It's a different person. Different person. Queen Alexa.
Okay. Sorry.
Cozy TV streamer, right?
No, she doesn't stream.
No.
She just does. She just does panels.
Yeah, she just hosts the political shit show panels.
Political shit show. Where can
She
I watch
does like
political
interviews
shit
and
show?
stuff as well.
By whoever's on it.
Okay.
Honestly.
So you guys celebrate any holidays besides Christmas, Hanukkah, whatever else?
I have COVID. I did not celebrate anything. I have been insanely sick this entire time.
I've been celebrating Kwanzaa.
Really?
I haven't heard that one in a while.
I celebrate Boxing Day.
Remind me,
Canada.
what is Kwanzaa again?
I celebrate Yule.
Yeah. D&D knows. He understands.
The day after Christmas, I believe, is some big thing in Canada called Boxing Day.
Yeah.
I'm not very familiar with what it's supposed to be. I just know it's a thing.
It's like a religion neutral.
I had this Canadian mate message me one time, and he's like, "Yo, bro, happy Boxing Day." I'm like, "What the fuck is that?"
It's,
and that's
it's
how I
something they
figured out
came
what
up
it
with
was.
so they couldn't offend people. It's really cool like that. I really like Canadians.
And yet Canada will
Am I freezing up or anything for whatever?
Nope, everyone is good.
Everyone's good though. Okay, if I freeze up or something, like my Discord is being weird right now. I don't know why, but anyway.
Sprout's camera is off. Okay, it's back.
Not anymore. I'm good.
Discord's a little weird, isn't it?
This is the biggest panel we've had yet. This is way better than when Taj and I booked 10 people and 3 people
Actually,
showed
this
up.
is gonna be a lot better.
Oh my god.
so
Never
big.
book fucking Claw.
We're still waiting
like...
on one person.
Yeah.
2 people.
Yeah, I'm waiting on him to get back to me.
I can't hear you guys. I took my headphones off, so give me 1 second.
I have
One person not showing up out of like
Huge
12.
W and turnouts, guys. I'll be ready in just a bit.
I have an emergency person we can pull onto the show if we need them.
Yeah, we do have an emergency
looks
option
like-
for another
yeah,
pro
it look-
map.
Yeah. It looks like
For
he's
another pro
not
map, I
answering.
All right,
Alright,
yeah, grab
let
the
me
other
invite my
pro map
friend.
then.
We're gonna have to, did you
Pro
ban
maps,
them
huh?
or just kick them?
Hold on, let
Just
me.
kicked.
Okay, let me invite
I'll
them.
be right back.
All right, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna mute and talk to my chat for a little bit.
Alrighty, go ahead.
What do you think?
What's up, homies? Sorry about the phone call. I got he called me right as I was starting stream. It was an important call. It's I I haven't really talked about this, or I haven't streamed in like 3 weeks, but I just quit my job like I don't know, like 5 days ago, like 2 days before Christmas. I clocked out, walked out, got into a huge fight with somebody, and I and so yeah, so I like I have a bunch of people calling me now, offering me jobs, and I gotta take those calls. So I took the call and just kind of told them, I'm like, hey, I'm about to start something, but I will call you back, and I'll get back with you. So yeah, congrats. Yeah, thanks. I mean, look, dude, this is something I've been doing for like um I don't know, like 10 12 years, and they just like they totally dicked me. They totally dicked me. And I am like sick over the whole thing. So I looked so angry on the phone I was talking, he wanted to know what happened with the last company. So I'm like going off about like what happened. That's why I looked angry, because I'm like telling him about everything that happened. So yeah, I didn't know who was going to be on this. I thought it was just going to be a bunch of randoms. I thought these were all going to be randoms. So I didn't expect to know anybody's name. And then all of a sudden I hear Wick and Sprouticus when I first turned it on. I was like, oh, what? And then now I don't know. I guess I feel like I've heard of Black Yamato. But I outside of that, I only know Sprout and Wick. I don't think I've ever met Wick before, but thankfully they all heard that apparently we have like real maps on here today. So like a bunch of them. Like they said that they came and got me because they're having trouble finding people taking the anti-pedo position. So I'm excited. I am happy, because normally I'm the pro pedo position. Normally I go on Politically Provoked and they're like, Tom, we need you to debate the pro pedo position. I'm like, I'm not pro pedo. What are you talking about? They're like, I'm not pro pedo. So when they asked me to do this debate, I'm like, okay, can we be clear on like what it is you want me to debate here? Because I'm not sure. They're like, yeah, we want you to debate against a bunch of maps. I was like, oh, I'm debating against maps. Oh, dope, dude. This is nice. That's new. Sweet. I don't.
And
I am wait. So do you need me or
hold up? And before we get into the introducing the guests of the panel, we have a guest moderator, Yamoto. If Yamoto
sorry about
speaks,
that.
if Yamoto
Wait.
tells you to like shut up, you listen to him just like you would me and Taj. Also, Yamoto will have the right to kick you. He'll also be able to message me if he thinks anything is going in a TOS sort of manner. With that all being said, and without further ado, let's dive on into the panel. We'll start with the pro map side. Who should we start with? Let's start with Sanguine. Sanguine, how about you go ahead and introduce yourself to the panel?
Hello, my name is Sanguine Sapphic, and I am pro map as well as a zoophile. My name is Alexa, and I'm just here to support my views and help other people out there find their place.
Alrighty. Up next, we're gonna have Exim. Go ahead and introduce yourself to the panel.
Hello, I'm Zine. I am a AAM and map supporter. I've been involved in the community about 5 years. You may call me, Zine. Yeah, that's about it for me.
Alrighty, Sirens, go ahead and introduce yourself.
I am Siren Verse. My Twitter is at ResoWundif. I've been in the zoo community for a year now. I use all pronouns. That's about it.
Alrighty, up next we have Boredom. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Name is Boredom or James, Bored Ass Guy on Twitter. Got a plug. I'm pro map, but only if non-contact, and it isn't like anybody's being manipulated.
All right, and finally we have Pimdu. Pim. I don't know.
Hi. So my name is Pimdu. My views are a bit complicated. So here I'm turning my camera. So I think getting into it would take around like a 5-minute lecture. So I'd rather not get into it just now. Yeah, that's the side I'm with.
I would advise you turn off the flashing lights just in case anyone has like prone to
don't wanna
seizure.
hear it. I
Okay,
will.
now we're gonna go up next to the anti-map side. We'll start with Spartacus.
Hi, I'm the Sprouticus, and basically what I believe about maps is that they don't have a spot in our society, and just like schizophrenia, if you show yourself to be a map publicly, without harming anyone, then you should be involuntarily institutionalized, and have your problems dealt with there, to ensure that you cannot harm the greater society.
Alrighty, and then up next, let's go Wick.
Hello, name's Wick. So I think that these people do deserve our sympathy, right? But we cannot condone their behavior, nor can we allow them to operate as we would normal people, right? The society's duty to protect children comes over its duty to protect people with this condition. I do think that they should be able to get help and reach out as long as they haven't offended. But otherwise, this is not something we should condone or support in our society. That's all.
Alrighty, up next we have Rose Malay.
All right, hello, can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Okay, so first of all, my biggest concern with these map types is that as a trans woman myself, I feel like a lot of them want to invade the LGBT spaces, kind of incorporate it, because our movement's been going, getting acceptance, and it's like, no, you don't get to be part of our movement. Second of all, I don't think that people should be seen as like necessarily like evil just because of certain things they can't control about themselves. But at the end of the day, just because it's something that's how they are, I don't care. It hurts other people. It's degenerate, and it's like we should widely condemn it, and there should be punishments for it. I don't. The worrying rise of acceptance of this community is really concerning to me.
Alrighty, and last but not least, we have Tom Foolery.
Yeah, my name's Tom. I go by Tom Foolery. I stream on YouTube, and I also do some video essays. I'm in favor of like destigmatizing non-offending pedophiles, but I'm not in favor of underage relationships or underage contact with or pedophilic relationships in any way. I want to keep as much freedom as possible without doing things that are likely to lead to long-term traumatization. So, yep, that's it.
Alrighty, with all the introductions out of the way, I'll let Taj introduce the first question.
All right, guys, let me pull up the questions real quick. I am so sorry. Should have had that open, ready to go. All right. So there's a lot of controversy around even the term maps, right? So what a common thing that we hear these days is that using the term maps is harmful to the LGBTQ community because people classify maps as a sexual orientation. So the first question is, what are y'all's thoughts on calling being minorly attracted or a pedophile as a sexual orientation? Is it fair or healthy to call it that, or should it be classified as a different way? What's everybody's thoughts?
Well, I think it should be classified as a disorder, right? First and foremost, right? Like we can talk about sexual orientation. I'm not too sure about that, but it definitely is something we want to stigmatize. We want to stigmatize, right? Having this, we want people who have it to get help, right? It should be seen by society as an illness, right? As something that we shouldn't like demonize people who haven't offended, right? We could say, hey, man, we have sympathy for you. We're going to get you help. But this is, again, treat it what it is. Call it what it is. It's an illness. And it's not something we should condone.
I would like to interject here with my statement of, I don't think calling minor attracted person is too big of an umbrella term, because there's lots of, considerations to being a minor, age, where you are, location. That's more of a legal thing. And, that could mean that minor attracted person changes depending on where you are. I also think calling it pedophilia isn't fair, as pedophilia is described as being more, it's prepubescent, and the majority of minor attracted people, quote unquote, are not attracted to prepubescent. They're more 13, 14-year-old range, which I think is perfectly acceptable.
I want to just say something that I think needs to be made a little bit more clear, and I don't think it's talked about enough. Not, and this is coming from somebody in the map community. Not every map is a horrible person, and not every anti is not every map is a great person. Not every anti is a horrible person. I've met some maps that are horrible people, abuse children, and I wouldn't even call them maps. That is offensive to the name. That is offensive to the term. I would call them downright manipulative and emotionally blackmailing predators. Those are the dangers to society. I've seen zoophiles who yank teeth out of dogs. It's not okay. That is what is wrong with society. I've seen some aunties that go out to their local church. They do charity. I've seen good and bad people on both sides. Neither side's blameless. And like Sanguine said, it's a bit of an umbrella term, but not just from what a minor is, but what counts as being attracted. Is it sexual? Is it not sexual? Is it, it really needs to be talked about in bigger depth. I also want to cover the base question of whether or not it should be accepted as a sexuality. And personally, and this is coming from me, I don't really think it should be called a sexuality by definition. And there's a few reasons for that, but primarily because I don't think every person in LGBTQ should be grouped up with a map. And that's not saying that maps are bad. That's just saying I can understand them not wanting to be involved with that. And I feel like it might discourage some people from coming out as gay because they might be characterized as a pedophile. And again, I'm not saying it's bad, but I can understand why someone might not.
So
Okay,
Yes,
so
I mean,
first things, 1 second, please.
Good.
First things first. So the idea that we're gonna hop on here and just say like, oh, just because it's minor attracted people doesn't mean that they're sexually attracted. Yes, that is what it means on its face, that they are sexually attracted to
No.
minors.
No, it's
That is what
not.
it means on its face.
That's for the
Then explain.
definition
Then
of
explain. Then
pedophilia.
explain.
No weapons on stream. Put
No,
them
it is not the
up or you're
definition
getting
of
kicked.
pedophilia. The definition of pedophilia is to be attracted to a minor who is prepubescent. So,
Right,
explain to
right.
me what explain to me what
Paraphilias.
minor attracted people means, if not sexually attracted.
I
Paraphilias.
have.
Sirens.
Wait,
you
wait,
were
can we have
answering.
one?
Sirens goes first.
Yeah, go.
Okay, so paraphilias, as a definition in the mental health community, in the DSM, they are described as sexual attractions. Specifically, sexual attractions that have lasted longer than 6 months, but they are also described as having an arousal to those particular things. It's not just sexual attractions, and I would even go farther as, having these attractions myself as to
Arousal is
say that it's
sexual.
not just sexual.
Those are the
It's
same things.
Whoa. Arousal is sexual. It implies sexual attraction. Like,
Yeah.
I do not get aroused if it is not sexually. Like, there's no other, definition of this word, right? If I am aroused at something, it means that I am sexually attracted to it.
Okay, hold on. I'm asexual. So that's not true for everybody. It's not true for me. I can be sexually aroused, I can be sexually stimulated. I enjoy sexual activity, but I have no sexual attraction whatsoever. Those do not have to involve each other.
Hold on, what does that mean then? If you're saying that you can be aroused by something, but you don't have a sexual attraction to it, can you separate these two in
So
some way to where they are different things? Because it still sounds like you're saying the same thing.
It's not the same thing for me. It's
Give me.
You can say not for you, but I would like you to separate it logically in some way.
One second,
please.
1 second, everybody. 1 second. Mr. Tom Foolery, is that you, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll let you go after I say. Elder Drowsy will be here in give him a minute. That's what he said. He just started DMing me. All right, Tom Foolery, you can go again.
I think, or who was it that I was just talking to a second ago?
That was me, Siren.
Siren?
Siren
Okay,
first.
yeah, so Siren, can you lay this out either logically or with definitions, how one is different from the other?
Yeah, sure.
So
Arousal is more of a stimulated sense. It's more of a bodily reaction to an outside stimulus.
Mhm.
That's why even in cases of like, I don't want to be too, blunt about this, but in cases of rape, your body will still be aroused to the sexual stimulation, whether
Mhm.
you are any other way aroused to it or not.
But that's
Sexual
different.
arousal
Whether
is-
or not you want the thing to happen does not mean that you aren't sexually attracted to the thing that is happening. And so
You're
that
aroused to it.
That's called sexual stimulation, right?
Right.
So
Yes,
there's a
that is
very big
arousal.
difference.
the
No,
most
no.
Sexual stimulation
clinical
is
term to
arousal,
put it-
but it's not the definition of arousal.
And again,
Sexual
as you-
stimulation is a
just
much
real
broader
quick,
term than
before we
arousal.
get into the semantics here, right? Again, sirens, as you mentioned that the DSM defines it also as arousal. If you are being sexually stimulated by children, that is bad, right? We can say that is not something we want to happen. Okay, I
That
hope
wasn't-
everyone can see, right?
That wasn't necessarily the point I was trying to
doesn't
make.
make
The point
very
I was
much
trying, yeah, the point I was trying to make was that the DSM doesn't fully encompass all aspects of what paraphilias are or can be. And I followed it up moments later saying that romantic attraction needs to be included in those definitions as well.
No, even romantic attraction, we don't want that to happen to kids. If you are romantically attracted to children, you need to seek help because that's a problem.
Yeah, I mean, just to
I
answer
think-
the question that initially was asked, I think that I think the word map is kind of destigmatizing these groups. So I think we should use words like pedophile, ephibophile, or whatever it is based on these groupings. Even if we want to destigmatize the non-offending people and say, you're cool just as long as you don't act on these urges, that's fine. But using the word map, I don't believe does that. It is a sexuality, whether you want, it fits the definition. So if we're being accurate, it is a sexuality. But the LGBTQ is about destigmatizing groups of people or sexualities that have been stigmatized in the past. But pedophiles and minor attracted types of people are not people that we want to destigmatize overall because their attractions are their attractions are things that need to be stigmatized.
What do you?
So I
what do
want
you-
to.
Exene,
Go
go
on.
first.
Yeah.
Oh, all right. I do want to say something. And build off some of the ideas given by some of my fellow map supporters at AM Sports. It, and I have to agree with some of the things the antis have said as well. In
You're
a lot of
cutting in
cases-
and out. You're cutting in and out.
Yeah, your audio's really rough. It sounds like your mic's halfway plugged in.
Give me 1 second.
Sirens, go ahead while Exene fixes that.
Okay. I was gonna ask, what do you define as destigmatization?
Getting rid of negative stigma on a specific thing.
And
So
what
it
would that
doesn't
look
have to,
for?
you don't have to fully get rid of the stigma. You can somewhat get rid of a stigma and it would still be somewhat destigmatization. But yeah, that's any type of getting rid of a stigma would be destigmatization.
Should we use a? I'll give the base definition for everyone if you can all agree to this. Should we use the term destigmatization in the sense that a behavior or a pattern of behaviors that is in some regard deemed as socially harmful or socially wrong, becoming normalized or accepted to some extent within a society? Would that be a definition everyone's comfortable using?
Sure.
I think we should
Yeah.
just use the definition
Sure.
for Merriam-Webster is just to remove shame or disgrace. I think it's a lot easier, a lot simpler. So to destigmatize something is to remove shame or disgrace.
Whatever you want to call it, whatever word you want to use. But the
A
problem
stigma
here-
means that it's wrong socially, so, or it's against social norms.
I do
Right,
not
audio.
care what specific definition we use, but when we talk about things like making it okay, right, to have these urges and act on these urges, it's absolutely not. I think if we do destigmatize it or get rid of the disgrace or shame, whatever term you want to use, it is going to lead to children being harmed. And society has a duty to protect kids. One of the reasons the LGBT movement, right, is it's good to destigmatize that because they don't do harm to the community. They don't do harm to people, right? And society was repressing them unfairly. However, right? However, some things society should repress, such as pedophilia, maps, those types of things, because they do actually hurt people. Because children cannot consent. Because
As a heavy
Yeah.
believer of as in maps that are non-proceed, I think they're like, as long as they aren't in contact with any children, they aren't touching nobody, they keep to themselves, maybe they cope with it by, forms of art. I think that's okay.
No. Okay, we're
I don't
not.
believe.
Okay, I know for a matter of fact we're not getting ready to call CP forms of art. Please,
Whoa,
please
whoa,
tell me
whoa,
that's
whoa,
not what we're
whoa.
saying.
Whoa,
That's not the term we
whoa,
use.
I did
whoa,
not say
whoa,
it. I didn't say it.
whoa.
I'm asking you.
Sprout first. Let him finish so we can understand what he means before we start, insinuating with people.
I'm asking for clarification. I said, please tell me that's not what you're talking about, right? I'm asking for
I
clarification.
did
Yeah,
not
but
end
he wasn't finished, Sprout. You kind of interrupted him in the middle.
like I was saying, forms of art like literature, for example, who has, them reading, for example, there was an entire thing with what was this site called? For Archive of Our Own, AO3. They had the entire like movement trying to get like maps off the platform. But like, have they ever hurt anybody like that? People would complain about, oh, you're exposing our children to content that is sensitive, The site has tags, it warns people, it tells you, oh, people like this are on this site, There's no reason for you to be looking for that stuff specifically anyway. It's pretty hard to find if you're not looking for it. So I want the stigma of like, maps all being bad, like every single one, I want it, it needs to be gone. Some people don't actually hurt anybody in any way, shape, or form. So they don't deserve that, same negative
do you think they need treatment? Even the ones who aren't
treatment.
offending, do you think they need treatment?
Treatment, like that depends.
Like
some people
therapy,
are like, they
medication?
have urges that they can't control. And I'm like, you know what? Yeah, then you should seek help for yourself. I believe that, if you really want to seek help for yourself,
So
there are
wait,
ways to treat yourself, but I'm not saying like you should go, everyone that's bad should go like fucking into an asylum or something, or like go, be locked up just because they have a certain, feeling towards something.
How do you know they're uncontrollable if unless they do something? If you have these desires, you should go see a professional. The leading world professional, Dr. James Cantor, has shown that treatment is the only thing that is effective at preventing harm to children. Period. Your feelings don't really matter. We have the world leader who has said this. Like, nobody trumps this guy in research. You have to go see a therapist. Otherwise, you are doing a deplorable act, which is putting children at risk.
Because
you don't know it's
to
uncontrollable.
piggyback off of this, even if someone hasn't acted on these urges yet, the likelihood of them doing so without therapy increases exponentially. What you're doing when you refuse to seek therapy, if you have this condition, is you are increasing the chances of you giving into those urges astronomically. So while you shouldn't be depersoned or dehumanized, I disagree with that. What you should be is it should be mandatory for you to be in therapy or have some sort of treatment plan. I'm not a doctor. I don't know what works best, but something needs to be done because you are, again, putting people at risk without getting your stuff. Just like if I had huge anger issues, okay, and I just could not control myself, I wanted to strike out and punch people all the time. If I do not get treatment for that, I am also a danger to the community and should suffer consequences. That's it.
Well, similarly, there's a condition called OCD bad thoughts where you think about hurting people all the time. And I know somebody who has it. You can't have knives around you. You can't have guns around you. You constantly have invasive thoughts about hurting other people. Without that being treated, the likelihood that you're going to violently harm somebody is huge. And you can't. It's not something that's super easy to talk about with other people because people think, "Oh my God, is this guy going to kill me?" We need to treat people with enough compassion so they go get treatment. But not so much that they think that they're going to be okay if they offend.
Okay.
This is all
so-
barred out in the science too.
So here's my question for anyone on the
think-
ProMap side. Does anyone disagree that treatment is a viable option? If so, what do you believe is an alternative to treatment? And do you believe that treatment is flawed in any way?
I believe some
have
people do genuinely. Should I let Simon go first or me?
Go
you
go
can
ahead,
go.
Extreme.
I think
yeah, go
some
ahead.
cases treatment is kind of a necessity. In some cases, not every case. Like he said, we all have thoughts of hurting people. It's a natural human thing. You have a baby crying on a plane, you go, I just want to throw it off the plane. That's a natural human thing. Some maps are like, hey, this 17, 16-year-old, they're kind of cute. Some have that. The issue comes when they're like, I want to have sex with a 12-year-old constantly. That's when it becomes an issue. That is the territory where you need to go and seek some sort of asylum. That is where it becomes a genuine problem. There's a range that needs to be understood between it being, I don't even want to call them urges, between them being thoughts and being an obsession. I feel like, everyone's one side or the other when it's a wide range. I've had people on Twitter who are map scheming go, hey, nice, whatever I uploaded, nice tweet. And I've had this one guy just as recent, 30 some years old, call me sexy, call me all this. And I'm like, and I think it's a spectrum between over sexualization and just a thought. I think that it's a range that needs to be understood and needs to be acknowledged.
Sanguine, go ahead, and then Sirens, you go after.
This is kind of gonna go off of the whole range thing, but I have noticed there's this assumption with people who identify as maps where they'll be treated like they're this psychopathic person who's about to touch children at any second, when the reality of it is it's not really an active thought, it's more of an allowance where, let's say you find somebody attractive and they just so happen to be a minor, that's on the same level as like being pan. You just don't mind that they're a minor. You don't think, oh, this person's a minor. You just like them for who they are, right? And then you don't go actively seeking out minors, like you're on the hunt for underage people to seduce or whatever. I wouldn't say that's something that happens
Yeah.
as commonly as people think.
To interject just briefly, but even if you don't approach a minor and a minor approaches you and solicits you, if you accept, that's still bad, and we still want to stop that from happening.
I
Also,
feel like
That's not usually the
blown
case. This is
terribly out of
very, very
proportion.
uncommon what you're talking about.
I've never personally seen predation in the manners that you speak of, and I've been in a community where there have been plenty of map relationships. It is more often than not been the minor who approaches the adult.
How does that make it
I-
okay?
Even
If somebody-
even if a minor even if a minor approaches the adult still has the responsibility to deny that. In the same way, in the exact same way that if a guy has a very attractive woman come up to him in a bar and she is just plastered, you can tell that she's just drank 5 too many and she's just gone. He has the responsibility to say no because she's not in the right mind and she cannot give consent. In that exact same way, the adult still has the responsibility to say no. Map relationships in and of themselves are predatory.
You nailed it.
But just as you said, it's like
Right.
if they like 5 drinks, they're unable to. Where is the line? 17-year-old, just got emancipated. They can't consent. 16-year-old got emancipated. They can't. Where's the
Well, we have
between-
laws in
lines.
each state.
We can recognize real quick. We can recognize that it's a little blurry sometimes, but we have to draw hard lines in the sand. Otherwise, we got this constant shifting thing. So we have decided as a society, right, on different states have different like age ranges, but normally, at least in the United States, people consider federally 18 a good line, and you can argue and I think advocate for that to go up or down. But I think that again, just because society has a duty to protect kids, we can look at this and say, hey, we've drawn this line. If you violate this line, that's it. And maybe not unfair in some circumstances, whatever. But again, if we let this become too blurry, too wishy-washy, it leads to really bad outcomes for everyone.
Can I ask a question?
The
Because
majority
I
of
feel
states
like,
in the United States is actually 16. 34 out of the 50 states is 16, not 18.
I
just
feel
wanted
like
to
we're gonna
clarify
get
that.
stuck on this. So if I can ask, like, is there anybody here who just doesn't think that there is any sort of trauma that comes with underage kids interacting with in a sexual relationship with an adult?
Sometimes there isn't,
I do
but the
not.
vast majority of the time that there is. So we have to treat every single one like it is going to be. Just because somebody can have an experience like that and be totally okay, even if they could be better off for it, since the vast majority of them are going to have something really terrible happen like within them because of it. We have to treat them all like it's going to be that. It's just like drinking and driving. You can drink and drive and get home totally safe. We would never advocate for somebody to drink and drive ever. The danger levels are too high. The cost benefit analysis, it's just not even worth considering advocating for that.
Yeah, are there pro maps who believe that there isn't trauma that comes with these age differences?
I believe that in some cases, that's a really iffy subject. I think and I have to take a moment to agree with Elder. A lot of cases, yes. Especially
The vast majority.
A vast majority. What I'm advocating for primarily is non-sexual. I think that, but also what I'm trying to advocate for is that children need to be taught in school relationships, how to notice bad ones. What I'm advocating for is that they need to be taught these life lessons earlier. They shouldn't just be thrown out 18, be a recluse, not know what a good, bad relationship looks like. 17, get emancipated, not know. That's how you get kids pregnant at 15, 14.
I don't think
And
anyone
none of-
here is against like a proper sexual education, right? Like I don't think that's something
Okay.
that's being
Is
contested
anyone
here.
here against sex education?
I don't
Given it's in-
think I've heard
Give it
that.
give it it's in the proper grade.
Can I have
No.
can I
Okay,
have
good.
All right, okay, so
Rose, go ahead. Rose has the controversial sex ed take. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not like against it by nature, but at the same time, I think I'm very wary of it. I think obviously that's something the parents should have to choose. I feel like there are situations where it's like, I mean, I remember being like a 12-year-old thinking like, why am I learning this now? It's kind of like a weird thing. Like there are some situations where it's like you're shown exposure to some sexual things that's considered this awful, terrible thing. Yeah, when school does it, it's like this great educational thing. I mean, like, I guess there's some use to it. And I think that's something that it's very important for kids to know about. But a lot of times it's just hard to trust, like, who's in charge of that stuff. But I think it can be good, but you just have to be very careful about it. And I think a lot of times they are, but I don't know.
Well, so
Rose,
I feel like most
Rose,
of
let me-
us are going
go
to
ahead.
debate this on the trauma part, and that's where most of us who are anti-map are going to be coming from, is that we're mostly worried about the trauma. I haven't heard anybody. So nobody, no pro maps here believe that there is any, like, they don't believe, or they all believe that trauma comes with these age gaps. Correct? Like, there, because
Well,
nobody has
Sanguine, go
jumped in
ahead.
on that.
Sanguine, go ahead.
I think that, basically everything can cause trauma, so it doesn't really seem fair to say that, it's an automatic liability to cause trauma with an age gap.
No, we can't do this. Everything can cause trauma.
What?
Something has a vastly higher chance of causing trauma.
If
Like,
I may,
yes, I could die. No, just real quick. Yes, walking down the street, I could get hit by a car and die. There is risk, but there's vastly more risk if I go behind the wheel drunk, right, and start driving. Like, the
so
risk increases astronomically. So what we're arguing here, or my advocacy here, is that the risk to children, right? And it's not so much just the age gap, it's the fact that they are still children and still developing and do not understand and cannot understand the full implications of what these things mean, that it's going to hurt them. It just is.
so if I may,
It seems
right?
like
Yeah.
So if I may, right? On what scale? I think trauma has different levels of scales, right? When you say anything can trauma them, you would have to, like, I could be scared by a dog and it wouldn't be as traumatizing as someone who's suffered a sexual assault, right? I think there's different scales to what trauma will dictate. I don't think just say anything can be used as trauma. I don't think that helps the situation.
I personally don't see this specialty about sex and how it differs from any other actions where uh where it could cause trauma, like you said, a dog attack or something. I don't see how that sort of trauma is different from sexual trauma.
You don't
Can I
see.
interject here?
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Go
Okay,
ahead.
so this is kind of circling back to like the whole sex ed thing. Um, when I was being taught sex ed, it was actually my dad who taught me, and I'll get into all that never. But he was in college at the time, so he had college level textbooks on like sexual reproduction and how the brain responds to sexual stimulation. There is a fundamentally different response to sexual stimulation than any other thing. It is more personal, more it I think it's more dopamine that it produces, but it's a stronger effect than anything else that you could do.
Hence why we give it special status, right? Like, it is a
Yes.
unique experience, right? So yeah, that plays into our argument here that, again, it is traumatic in unique ways that a dog attack would not be, for example. And again, the fact that it is a drive that people have, and there are people, pedophiles, who prey upon children, right? Who actively seek out kids to prey upon and traumatize like this for their own gratification. Again, society should stigmatize that. I don't know why this is a weird take. This is a hill I'm gonna die on. I thought I just don't know. I don't understand. But go on, please.
I think the ones that actively go out and hunt people are the dangerous to society. Yes, I agree. People, for example, the ones that reach out to me on Twitter and go, "Hey, you're hot, you're sexy, we should be." Those are the kinds of people that are genuine dangers to society and need to be dealt with, not just in a psychological way like therapy or a ward, but also legally. That is not okay. But it's just the same as following a woman into an alleyway. Same thing. Or prying on a drunk woman, as what your face made earlier. It is the same thing. And then I also get the people in my DMs that are like, "Hey, you're cool. You have nice writings, nice art. You do good things." Those are the people that should be accepted. I feel like there's, again, a range, but I also want to take hold for a minute. And, I want to make sure we're all on the same page as what we're considering. A minor is a 17-year-old still a minor, a 16-year-old. Because, again, as someone else said, 16 is kind of the legal, it is the age of majority and not just most of the United States, and granted, I don't live in the United States, but most of the world, Sweden, Norway, Britain, etc., have 16, and some countries have down to 13. So it really needs to be talked about. What are we considering a minor
Okay, sure.
attracted
I'll just
person?
give you mine. And so when I consider a minor attracted person, right, anyone who's attracted to 15, 16-year-old, even a 17-year-old, anything under 18, like I would, again, I want to be clear. I want to be clear. If you're 19 and you're attracted to a 17-year-old, that's not what we're talking about, okay? That's different. But when you're 19 and you're attracted to a 13-year-old, that's a problem, right? So again, we can say the line's wishy-washy, and I could agree with you, but we have to draw firm lines in the sand legally and societally. Again, my judgment for you, if you're attracted to a 17-year-old, is different than if you're attracted to a 13-year-old, but judgment nonetheless.
Yeah.
Hold up, Rose,
Witch
before
says,
you
I'm
go.
fine with-
I think the PM person was trying to speak, and I don't think they've spoken at all yet. So go ahead, PM or PYM. I don't know how to say your name.
I wasn't trying to speak.
Oh,
Don't
okay,
worry.
my bad. Then Rose, go ahead. Sorry.
I was gonna say I think that age gaps are more important than the age of consent, because I don't think like you wake up on your 18th birthday and you suddenly become an adult. Obviously, that's pretty silly. That being said, like the brain doesn't fully develop until you're 25, but the age of consent shouldn't be 25. I think as long as it's important to know, like we're gonna treat a 40-year-old who's attracted to an 18-year-old as a much more severe consequence than like a 16 and 19. Are they both wrong? Are they both like there's moral gray areas there. So I think when it's as simplified as that, I don't fully agree with that. I do agree that there should be like some like line, and I think 18 is a good line. But at the same time, I don't think like if a 40-year-old's dating a 16-year-old, that's pretty messed up. But if the person's like a lot younger or around the same age, it's like there can be an age gap where it's kind of iffy, but it shouldn't be treated the same, at least legally, in my opinion.
Yeah,
I completely agree with the Romeo and Juliet law. Such as like if you're 17 and you're dating a 15-year-old, it doesn't automatically become illegal the second you turn 18. I completely agree with the Romeo and Juliet law, and I'm gonna have to throw a lot of agreement behind what Wick and Rose just stated. Is that the age gap is extremely important when you're talking about like these young ages when you're 19, 17, that kind of thing. The age gap becomes very important. But if you're 25, 26, and you're like, yeah, that 17-year-old, I'm gonna go try and ask her out. That's 100% wrong, and you need to seek treatment because the feelings you have are just absolutely incorrect and can lead to serious harm to a minor.
I
Can I
think
interject?
that the law's probably
Go
pretty
ahead.
okay.
Go ahead.
Oh,
Who was trying to interject?
Me.
Siren, go ahead.
Siren.
Siren, then Elder.
I do want to kind of ask, like, when you're out in public and you see somebody and you think, hey, they're kind of attractive, I'm going to go ask them out. Does that, you brought up like a 17-year-old. If they don't know that that person is 17, there's no like visual cues to tell that person that they're
No, I
17.
get what you're asking. Fully
Yeah, is
developed,
that
like some
still
women develop early, right? Some people, I should say, because some men develop early too. I've seen 17-year-old guys who look like they're 25. Jeez. But you know what? That's a little different. When I'm talking about maps, right? When we are discussing maps, I think most people understand it. Like it's people who are attracted to people who are visually, obviously underage, right? They are not fully developed. They are absolutely don't look like they're 25. They look like they're 13, right? I think that is what I am discussing here.
right, but that's only a small portion of what the map umbrella term encompasses. You're talking specifically like hebephiles and pedophiles more so, but fhebephiles are
Even
Why would
let me
see
take
this
this. Let me take
umbrella?
this
No, no,
one.
no, no, no,
So
no, no,
even
no, 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 Sprout,
even
Sprout,
if
Sprout, Sprout,
okay.
Sprout, stop. So again, if you're what you're saying here is that we are being too broad with this brush and painting everyone as maps when we should only be painting the people attracted to the 15 under or wherever you want to draw that line. Okay, maybe we can do that, right? Maybe we can do that. But the problem is when people I hear advocate for maps, right? They are making the umbrella as broad as possible so they can point to the reasonable stuff and say, look, you're attracted to a 17-year-old sometimes when you don't know they're 17-year-old to justify protections and destigmatization for the people who are attracted to the 13-year-olds. And that is a problem.
All right, to
The
wrap
not,
up then,
issue
not,
Tom.
not
I
only that.
mainly have
So not
with
only that, but I'll take it kind of head on. So like if you do find yourself somehow talking to a 17-year-old who looks 25 and you have the full idea that they're 25, et cetera, and so on. The second they say they're 17, that should be an immediate turnoff, and you should immediately be like, yeah, nope, never mind, my bad. I thought you were much older. It should be immediately a turnoff. If it's not an immediate turnoff, then you've got some things to reflect on.
Let's fucking go.
So
I think
my-
that the. Oh, okay.
Sorry,
I don't know who
Sanguine.
the
Go ahead.
moderator is.
Oh wait, no. Sorry,
I-
Sanguine's lit up when you spoke. Go ahead, Elder. I apologize.
Okay, I
I'm
think
so
that
sorry.
the law is a pretty good metric. None of the laws are like batshit crazy young. Obviously, people in those states agree on that number. Otherwise, there would be people. If people thought that the law was letting people fuck kids, they'd be burning down their courthouses. Like full stop. There's no way that this wouldn't be the case. Some places it's 16, some places it's 18. I think that that's the metric that we have to go by as far as like what makes you somebody who's like criminally wrong and how you're conducting yourself. However, I think that there's people say like the age gap. I think the age gap's a good marker, but I think it's like contextually based. I think that if somebody is in a state that's like 16, but they're dating somebody who's 18 and they're like 35, there may be a very good reason why these two make sense together. There might be some situation like, oh God, actually that makes perfect sense to me. Although there might be some people that are like 22 dating 17-year-old, like you have no business being with each other. This 17, like this, or even somebody who's like 19, like a 25-year-old, like this 19-year-old, like they're very clearly like they have the mind of a fucking 12-year-old dude. Just fucking stop. I don't want to hear about the legality of it. Societally, we're gonna tell you no, this is fucked up. But like I said, the state people very clearly don't feel like people are fucking kids in these states on the whole. Like the states, like these people have spoken on what they think. And I don't think that we can be like super crazy crucifying people who are following the guidelines of their states.
Sanguine and then tomfoolery. Sanguine.
Oh, sorry. So I just had to. Sorry, I'm.
You're good. Take your time.
So I think that I think I need to skip my turn real quick. I'll be right back.
Go ahead, tomfoolery.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of the people on my side are drawing hard lines a little bit too liberally. It is normal for adults to be attracted to anybody who is post-pubescent. We are attracted to post-pubescent features regardless of the age. You don't all of a sudden stop being attracted to somebody just because you find out some number that's related to them. But that doesn't mean that it is okay or socially acceptable to have a relationship with them. So being attracted to somebody who's 16 who looks like they're 25, you don't find out that they're 16 and lose all attraction to them or something like that, but you shouldn't want to pursue a relationship with them. So that's very different. Like as to whether or not you would be attracted to them, that's normal. It's normal to be attracted to post-pubescent features. It is not normal to want to pursue a relationship with that person. These are insanely hard conversations, especially to have on like a 10-person panel where there's so much information that you would need and so much context to like actually analyze these things. And it's most of the time it's going to be on a case by case basis when we're looking at different age gaps.
Don't put that up anymore.
But yeah, when we're looking at different age gaps, it's going to be like individually context dependent. But I think most of us are more so against the like minor attracted persons. When we're talking about that, we are talking about most of us are going to have bigger issues with prepubescent relationships. So it's not even just the attraction by itself that is wrong or immoral. A lot of these people can't help that. There's nothing they can do about it, but it is acting on those urges that we're going to have issues with, not just the attraction in and of
not
itself.
just that.
Well,
To
Tom,
push back just
I'm-
real
I'm-
quick. Oh, go
well,
ahead,
are you-
Sprout.
okay.
Push back, and I'll push back
He-
after.
Okay. So Tom, like I'm gonna have to push back on that. The idea that if you're like you can be initially attracted to someone, you can initially have that human reaction of I like the way she looks, and et cetera and so on, to post-pubescent features, right? But the moment they say that they're underage, the moment they give you their mental capacity, right? Because being in a relationship, having attraction like that is not just about bodily features. It's also about mental capacity, right? So the moment they tell you that the mental capacity is underneath the age of 18 and you're like 26, 29, 25, 28, whatever, then that should be an immediate turnoff. That the mental capacity is not up to par, and therefore should be an immediate turnoff to, okay, this person's a minor and I'm not doing this. No.
I mean, it can be, but we're talking about different people's like you're all of a sudden talking about different people's attraction rates based on different types of characteristics and personality traits. Like that all differs and varies on all sorts of different things. Like you can't just say maturity level here for this age. That's not how it works. They can have different aspects on different personality traits. It's all over the place. You don't all of a sudden become unattracted to somebody based on a number is what I'm saying. You don't hear that this is their age and say they are no longer attractive or these post-pubescent features are no longer attractive to me, but you can say I should not want to pursue a relationship with this person, and you shouldn't.
Tom, real quick. So have you ever been attracted to someone, they turned out to be an absolute bitch, and you lost all attraction?
I don't think so.
Oh,
I think the
just
better
because
example might be-
just because they've got a nice figure, right? But they're an absolute bitch, and you figure that out.
Yeah,
does
me
that
not
change?
being
Does that change whether you're attracted to them or not?
Again, you are oversimplifying this so much. Attracted to them, what does that mean? Am I attracted to their personality? No, probably not. Am I attracted to their body? Yeah, I'm not gonna. That's not gonna change.
Individual.
I don't.
The individual.
Again, I don't know what that means. I think you're oversimplifying.
You don't know
it.
what an individual means?
I don't think
I
I'm
think
just
the better
attracted to an individual. I don't think that exists.
One second, fellas. Just to clarify things, make things move a little bit faster. I think a better example that Spartacus had for Tom was like, have you ever been attracted to somebody that like was really hot and you found out she was like super drunk and she couldn't consent? Hell no, she could not. Is that like a more fair thing, Spartacus?
that doesn't make them less hot. That just makes them less
Yes,
able to consent. So you
yes,
don't do
like,
it.
I think what I'm saying,
like you don't act on it though. That's what I'm
yes, what I'm stating is someone can be very hot, someone can be very visually appearing, very visually attractive, but the second that like such as if they're just really stupidly drunk and they're just plastered, that should be a turnoff. You should not want to have sex with somebody. Wait, one second. You should not want to have sex with somebody who is plastered. That should not be a want, right? Same idea with a minor, right? When they tell you they're underage, that should be an immediate turnoff as to, no, I no longer want to do this because you're underage. And that does kill the attraction. It doesn't kill the idea that you're attracted to like this figure or like the parts of the body, right? But what it should do is not that individual. That individual it's out of reach. I'm not touching it. I don't want to touch it. I'm backing off. I'm going to find somebody else.
Yeah,
Sprout,
it's like I said, you
is
stop being
attraction,
attracted to the personality, but you're still attracted to the body.
Let's get back on track. Sanguine, go ahead. And then we're going to, after this, move on to the subject, a different subject, sort of, segueing into our next point.
I just wanted to say something on the topic of like losing your attraction because somebody turns out to be some sort of age.
I don't even know what topic we're on right now. I have no idea what the topic even is. I thought like we're just jumping all over the place. But I feel like, yeah, I feel like the guys on my side are like being a little too pearl clutchy and they're oversimplifying things, taking like all of the nuance out of it.
That doesn't make any sense to me.
it could not make sense to you. That's fine. What you just stated is the idea that someone it was attracted to 13-year-olds at one point and then kept that attraction throughout the rest of their life. Which means that I would consider that a mental disorder, and they need to get seen by a psychologist to try and deal with those issues,
Well,
because it's something
when I was a kid, I like
definitely one
felt
second, please. It definitely is something that would be considered a mental disorder, and it needs to be seen by a psychologist. That way, the psychologist can help you move forward and not be able to, or not have the want or the desire to possibly be a harm to a minor.
So I want to just put a cap on this before we move on to the next subject, just as concise as I possibly can. The problem with being attracted or wanting to pursue relationships with minors is because they cannot consent. That is the heart of the issue. So it doesn't matter at the end of the day whether you find them physically beautiful or not. The fact that they cannot consent means that you cannot or should not pursue any form of sexual or romantic relationship with them. And if they approach you, if they pursue you, you should say no. That is the heart of the issue.
Sanguine, go ahead, and then we're changing topics.
On that topic, I don't see where you draw the line of consent. I think 13 is a perfectly reasonable age for them to be able to consent. I mean, at 13, you can have a Twitter, you can have a Discord, you could interact with so many people, and you can do all of these things.
That's not having sex. That's not having sex.
Okay, I have a palate
I don't-
cleanser for the.
I
This
don't
might be
see
something that
how-
poisons the entire.
Wait, hold up. Go, Sanguine, go ahead with your point, and I'll let everyone
I don't see
respond.
how. To bring up an earlier point of, I wouldn't drive while drunk. It's a higher risk of trauma type thing. Using Discord is a pretty high risk of trauma in general, and yet 13-year-olds are allowed to do that. I feel like, there's a lot of dangerous things that you could get into on Discord, and that's not overtly sexual. That's just in general. You can get into a random gore server, and, these saying, oh, they're 18 is ridiculous. It's not a deterrent. Minors will lie if you tell them no.
Wait, just because somebody's going to break the rules doesn't mean you shouldn't have rules.
I have a quick question for everybody in chat. This could be a palate cleanser or something that just poisons the entire rest of the conversation. Hopefully, it's not the latter. What is consent to you? What does consent mean to you?
Consent means having the ability to have a sane, matured mind, and deciding that you want to do something in that mind. Because when you don't have for example, if you have an insane mind, right? So you're not sane at the moment. You don't have the ability to consent, such as you're plastered. I think everyone on this panel has done stupid stuff when they're drunk as fuck, and they're like, I really shouldn't have fucking done that shit. And the same thing applies when you're kids, right? When you're a kid and you look back at what you did as a kid, you're like, fuck me, I really fucking did that. And so like it's the same applies both ways. It's the ability to have a sane and matured mind, and in that mindset, being able to say, yes, I want to do this.
Sanguine, what's your definition of consent?
Well, I feel like saying consent is I prefer to use a very literal definition of just giving affirmation. And I feel like the ability to give this affirmation shouldn't be questioned as much as it is, especially by Sprouticus, I think. Because it seems to me that people are treating consent like it's some magic word that you have to spend years trying to learn how to say it. But to me, it's just saying yes or agreeing or doing whatever to affirm that you are okay with something.
Can I respond to this?
Go ahead, Elder.
Okay?
Go ahead, Elder,
Right.
and then Wick.
Anybody who has younger family members or have had babysat before knows how easy it is to get your dumb fucking little cousins or siblings to believe the dumbest shit to fuck with them. A 13-year-old will believe anything if you say it in a persuasive way, especially if you're somebody that they like. I have 2 cousins that I've babysat their entire life. I'm their favorite person in the entire world. If I told them anything and just like was excited and confident about it, they're believing that shit like that. Okay, there's something that comes with being old enough to understand how things work, to have interacted with people at an individual level without people looking over your shoulder and seeing how people act and understanding like how people lie and why people lie. These are the kinds of things that are super important when we're talking about being informed. The thing that's missing from this consent conversation that's happened so far is informed consent. You have to know what the fuck is going on. If you don't know what's going on when you're interacting with people and be able to assess whether somebody's genuine or not, and just understand like the reality of the things that they're talking about, you can't give consent. Consent means you know what the fuck is up, and then you can make a decision based on what they're saying, how you feel, and what it means for you then and in the future. And without that,
okay,
you can't give
Wick,
consent.
Wick,
Sure.
Siren, Sappho, and then tomfoolery. Wick, go ahead.
Yeah, one of the reasons that we don't allow kids to consent is not only for sexual reasons, but also, right? We do not allow children to sign contracts or enter into certain agreements and things like that because we recognize that they do not have the ability or capacity to understand. That's the key word here. Understand what it is they are saying yes to. It's not just the ability to say yes. That is such a low level that's such a silly take, right? It's not just saying yes. It's the ability to properly understand and comprehend what it is exactly you are agreeing or consenting to. That is key to consent. It is key to consent. And unless you can do that, unless you have that ability, right, then what you are doing is not giving a consent. You have not properly consented. That is why when someone lies or tricks to you in a contract or things like that, we generally, right, consider that contract coercive, null and void in some cases, right? I'm not a legal expert, but we would morally cast aspersions on the person who tricked, lied, or deceived someone, or made it or obfuscated things in such a way that they couldn't actually understand what they were actually signing, right? Again, consent requires understanding, and kids do not have the capacity to understand yet.
Sappho, go ahead, and then Siren, and then Tom.
Well, in that case, I believe that we need to stop saying, can kids consent? We should rather be saying, do they understand what they're consenting to? Because what you're talking about is informed consent, as mentioned previously. I think just saying consent is just saying yes, because you can consent to an agreement, and agreement is consent. You can just say yes to it. But if you don't understand what you're saying yes to, it doesn't really mean much, does it? So what you're
Okay, so
talking
here you
about
go.
is informed
Informed
consent,
consent,
which is
and
a
it needs
different thing.
in order for consent to be valid consent, right? It needs to have 3 things in total, which I think I tried to go over. I guess I didn't include the specific word, but you need to be informed, right? You need to have sane mind, and you need to have a matured mind. Because to be truly informed, your mind needs to be sane and matured. Otherwise, you cannot be truly informed. You're going to miss out on things. You're going to not understand certain aspects of things. And there's going to be a lot of difficulties there. So to be truly informed, you need to have a sane, matured mind. So there's 3 aspects: sane, matured, informed. If you are all 3, you have the ability to
Well,
consent. If you're missing one, you don't.
Hey,
maturity is something that is could be measured differently between people, and people mature at different rates. So, that's something to bring up that makes it a lot more case by case, with informed consent, because it's like
Yes, I think
emancipation.
Yes, I think if someone is if someone is mentally disabled enough to where they don't have a matured mind, they don't have the ability to consent. I think that if someone decides to have sexual relations with someone who is mentally disabled enough to not have a matured mind, I believe that they have then therefore raped that person because they don't have the matured mind to give consent.
Well,
that
at least
seems a
sexually
little
assaulted.
Can I speak on maturity? Because from where I'm from,
Go ahead, and then Siren goes next. No interrupting.
Okay.
Boredom. Tell Siren speaks after.
See, where I'm from, like originally, maturity is like a very confusing topic because most of the children there mature fast. I'm from Africa. Like people get married at 12. We live like that, right? So why is maturity locked behind an age? You know, I don't understand that personally. It's like I feel like anybody matures, like they said, it's a different rate for everybody. It can be anytime, you know. It's it's not a thing that just happens as you grow older. You just start learning more. Yeah, that's true for some people, or most people even, but not everybody is exactly the same in that sense, you know.
Yes, but we have to have societal standards. We cannot take the outliers, the exceptions to the rule, and build our legal system or our societal standards around that. Like
right.
no 12-year-old, no 12-year-old
Wick, I'm
is
sorry.
allowed.
I'm sorry. I gotta cut you off, but Sirens and Tom have been waiting a while.
Fine.
I'm sorry.
So like what Fordham was saying, James, um, people do mature differently, and there are different levels of maturity. So I think it should be absolutely on a case-by-case basis on whether or not someone is mature enough to consent. But at the same time, whether they're mature enough to consent or not, simple fact of the matter, if there's a massive age gap or if there's obvious manipulation, then nothing should go on.
All right, Tom, go ahead, and then Wick, you have the floor after Tom.
Yeah, so generally like consent just means to like agree to a contract. Normally when we're talking about consent in the terms of like sexuality, we're talking about your ability to engage in that contract in an informed way. It's mostly just conceptual. It's something that we made up. It's for society to exist in the most efficient way possible. We want people to have things like, you know, saying yes to having sex. Animals don't need consent, so they don't have societies, so it's not necessary for them. But for us, we have societies, and so there's a bunch of other things that we add in, and we want, like, you know, kids to be able to go through school, get their educations, have lots of experiences, and then therefore we hope by the time that they're around the age of majority that they will have had enough experiences, even though their brains aren't fully developed. Our hope is that they'll have enough experiences to where they are capable of giving informed consent.
Okay, Wick, go ahead.
The
And
moment's
then we're
passed, brother.
moving
The
to the
moment's
next.
passed, but I will be brief as possible. No 12-year-old has the same lived maturity experience as a normal, just a non R-worded 25-year-old. That's it.
I mean, I would like to argue that because my own parents, my mom was about like 14 when she got married to my dad, who was in his 20s, and they had a consensual relationship. You know, they were in Africa, so that was like completely normal.
She could not consent. If she was 14, she couldn't consent.
It was consensual.
It was in a completely
and
different country.
It is in a
It
completely
doesn't matter
different
what country it's in.
continent. It is in a
14-year-olds can't
completely
consent.
different
It
continent.
does.
It really does.
No, it does not. It
There's a
absolutely does
level
not.
of there's a
14-year-olds,
level
no
of
matter where
maturity.
you live, no matter how you're raised, no matter what culture you were from, 14-year-olds cannot consent.
In
That's it.
America.
In
No,
America.
anywhere.
Where's your
Well,
proof for
hang on.
that?
There
I
might
mean,
be a
legally,
conversation to
yes.
be had
If
there.
we are talking about legality, there are other places where they can
Are people
He's
who
not
are going to be
talking about
married at
legality.
14 and expected to
But, like,
consent? Are they like, is a big part of your life up until that point, having everything understood to you, like having this structure
yes,
of like what's going to happen? Is this like a big part of
this
like
is a
your
big part of
life?
your life. Yeah, I believe that everyone should be educated that way. You know, you should be like, oh yeah,
I'd have to think
marriage is gonna
about
be
it.
in your life. That's how I was raised. I was shit. If I remember, I was supposed to be like married by 11, or like not married but dating at 11. Like, you know, people older than me, my age, you know, type of shit. Of course I didn't because I moved out before that, but you know, it's like heavily taught to you, you know. You're basically raised as an adult from the second you're born. You're treated like you're gonna be a functioning member of society from frame zero, you know.
Yeah, that's called
And
grooming.
that's, if that's what you like to call it, I don't know, culture, grooming, whatever you want to believe, you know.
If you
Here
are
we
if
really
you're
need to
raising just real
have
quick, if
You're
we're
not
raising
raised
kids
to be married, but you know, you're
to
raised
get married at 11 or 14 years old,
you
you
were
are
raised with the
grooming them.
knowledge of how marriage works, how everything's gonna work, how your
Do you
life is gonna
think
be, you know, working,
so?
having a
James,
family.
do you think that culture and grooming are mutually exclusive.
Yeah.
So you think that
I'm sure there's
you think that a culture cannot groom. A
I'm sure
culture cannot
I'm
groom.
sure it is possible, but I would say they're exclusive. I'm not saying that, like, I think they're exclusive. They do not come together always.
So
I'm sure it's possible. It's a possibility, of course. I'm
I
not gonna
said
say
mutually
like
exclusive, which means that
saying
there's a strong separation. What you're
there's a
stating to
strong
me is that a
separation.
culture is incapable of grooming.
I feel like
I
saying
mean,
this is
I
grooming is
believe
on the
there's a
level of
capability,
saying
but
Penguin,
Or
go
the
ahead.
people in the
have to wear
early United
clothes
States, like
because
100 years
society
ago, were they
tells
all
you
grooming each
to.
other?
yeah, like
When people died
It's
at like 20
it's
on a normal day? Oh, Wig,
you're
you're
not
We
muted.
grooming
If
it
they
if
didn't,
if
they did
society is
not die at
telling
20
you
in a
to wear
normal day.
pants is
I
what you're
think we
saying
all need to
basically.
pause and
That's
have a bit of cultural understanding and respect of other cultures because that's what this boils down to. There are other cultures outside of America.
I
There are
do
other
not respect
cultures.
any culture who marries 14-year-olds.
okay.
Then you can't
That,
have
that's your
Jesus.
problem.
cultural respect.
Yeah,
You can't
that's
really
Yeah, I think
partake in
he's
this part of
conceding
the
that.
discussion because this
He doesn't
is
respect it.
Wait. To be fair, there are some cultures that have like child sex slaves, and there's some cultures that have like zoophilia that's like legal. There's some cultures that have it where they respect violence a lot. Where like if a boy beats his father, then that's like a super respectable thing. Just because that's in some cultures doesn't mean that Wick has respected because that's different in his culture,
okay,
right?
but when someone from that culture is expressing their opinions and saying, "Hey, this is what I've experienced and I think that this is, perfectly fine." I think we need to have a little bit more understanding of, hey, yeah, they just come from a different culture than we do. Let's have a little bit more understanding and compassion for that
We can
experience
we
rather
can say the
than
same thing.
just
We can say
because
the
they
same
have
thing for literally rape. We can say the same thing for slavery. I like where can I draw the line with what you just said? Anything
just
in the world.
because just because they have a different experience doesn't mean that I'm not allowed to have my opinion and disagree with them and say, no, you are still incorrect, this is still a wrong action, right?
I
And
agree.
so
I
if
agree
you're
with
so
Robert.
if you're going to tell me that I cannot disagree with what he's saying because it was his culture and this is how he grew up, so how dare me disagree, right? Then therefore you're taking my culture, you're taking how I grew up away from me. So there's no way to do this, which helps both parties. And so each person gets their own opinion. We all get to spout our own opinion, and no one on this panel should be lectured because they gave an opinion.
I'm
that's not what
saying
I'm
your
saying
opinion
at all.
is
And if you'd let me
entirely
finish, you would
valid.
know that
Like,
I was talking specifically about other people saying that his culture was grooming. Throwing
yeah,
around accusations like that is not okay.
I said the same thing.
Yep, I'm nope. I'm gonna disagree with you. It is absolutely okay to say, hey, what you're doing is wrong and you need to stop because it is harmful. Harm does not change, right, based on your borders. Okay, me crossing into another country doesn't make murder or slavery or grooming or rape any less wrong. Now, we can have compassion for someone who is raised in that. I understand that. I can say, you know what? You were raised this way. I have compassion for you, but I cannot condone it, nor can I support it. You have to call what is wrong, wrong. And there's something we can be very clear. When you get married at 14, if someone is raising you to be married at 14 years old, that is wrong.
Yeah, we wouldn't say that a culture whose like tradition is that when you're 15 years old, you go to the next village over, and then you violently rape as many women as you can, and the more that you do, the better of a man you are. We would never say that. Well, like that's just their culture. We gotta respect it if they're gonna celebrate violent rape of women of nearby places. Like then that's just how they are. So if something's wrong, we can still say that it's wrong. We don't have to like respect the way that other people do things because it's different. Like I don't really understand that. I don't understand like why
Because in the
once you get
context
so
of
far
our
away from where you're
society,
at. Yeah, but like what? Okay, yeah, but like society, it's such an ambiguous and vague word. It's like a distance
exactly.
thing. So like if yeah, sure. So like then why is it so much different than like if my neighbor's 80 years old and they grew up in a different time, I'm still gonna hold them to the same standards that I'm gonna hold everybody else to. Like they grew up with a different culture. I don't have to respect that shit. If I bring over a friend and they're black and they start calling them the N-word, I get to chastise them for that. I don't get to go, well, they're from a different time. I guess it's totally acceptable and okay for them to do this. I have no right to call them out on it. Culture is just a word for like a tradition. It's just how people do things. If somebody does things that's different than me, I think it's wrong. I have every right to call it out. That's not an argument like this says that it's okay or should be respected whatsoever. So you could
I'm
justify
not
anything by
saying,
saying that.
but like what I'm trying to say is like I'm not saying that you should like respect what happened in my life or like respect my culture, but there's like a level of respect you should have for people's, how do I say, the way they were raised. Like you shouldn't just go ahead and say, oh yeah, that's you're being groomed. Oh, that's grooming because I was raised a certain way. I was raised to be like a man in a sense. Like we were raised from young ages to like mature faster. That you go ahead and say, oh no, you're being groomed. Oh, you're being, that's disrespectful to the entire population. Like that's disrespectful to my family. Like you know what I mean. Other families that were raised that way and had like success in their life. You know what I mean?
Do you know who else? Do you know what other group matures faster? Abused kids. Abused kids mature faster because they're forced to be an adult far before they ever should have to be. So that you see that plenty of times here in America. But yet I stick to the same point that no, you should not have sex with minors. Like that's not something you should have. So just because someone has matured to a greater rate because of how they grew up. It does not mean that like, oh, okay, now all of a sudden it's okay. Because you know what, I grew up and they raised me as a man. They raised me as a man at 14 years old. There's no psychological way that you can be a full-grown man at 14 years old. There's no 14-year-old that's going to match intellectually and mental capacity with a 21-year-old. Maybe there's like one or two if you're talking like intellect as in how smart they are. But if you talk about general intellect, there's no 14-year-old that's going to match.
You can
Okay.
acknowledge that while also not throwing around accusations and harmful words.
It's not an accusation. They're defining what's happening.
No. Harmful words. That's not harm. Like I want to
Disrespectful
do
words.
harm and I want to disrespect a culture who marries all 14-year-olds because it is not worthy of my respect. It is not worthy of my
In
respect.
your opinion.
No, it just isn't.
Your opinion. Your cultural understanding.
Okay.
So
It doesn't
I'd
matter
like
what my
to-
cultural understanding is.
Sappho the Nexim.
So basically, you guys are saying that there's a mental disparity or a maturity disparity between, a 14-year-old and an adult, like a 22-year-old or whatever. But then why is it not okay, or why is it okay for like suddenly an age to be, they're 18, but they might not be as mature as other 18-year-olds. So they could be, not mature relatively, but that's still okay
Because at a certain
they're over
point,
because they quote unquote matured enough.
Because at a certain point, legally, we have to allow adults, right? We have to allow adults to make choices, even if those choices might harm them. So that is why legally we say 18-year-olds, right, can do things like marry a 50-year-old if they wanted to do so. We recognize that there's problems with that. That's probably a gross thing to do, but we have to give people the ability, it comes down once again, to consent. And we as a society has decided that 18 is the age where you can make those types of decisions and the government will not stop you. They will allow you that freedom to make those decisions. And we can socially say, ooh, that's kind of gross, but at the same time, it should not be illegal. So when we talk about things like a 14-year-old, we as a society, we as a culture, we legally have said, no, this person is incapable of understanding the contract, the marriage contract, or the relationship or the intimacy that they are engaging with, and that is wrong.
I just don't get why you say an 18-year-old with a 50-year-old is, oh, that's legal, but it's gross, but then you can't say a 20-year-old with a 14-year-old is, that's gross, but it's legal. I mean, it is like literally legal places, but
It
you
should
can't
not
accept
be.
that.
It should not be legal
well,
places. If there's any place
I
where a
don't see
14-year-old
why it
having
shouldn't be
sex with a
illegal.
20-year-old is legal, that should be done away with.
So if I can real quick, I'm not giving like an argument. It's just from our side, there's like a little bit too much pearl clutching. Like we're just saying it's wrong, it's bad, it's
Pearl
good.
clutching.
Like
No, excuse me while I
Yes.
clutch the pearls at 14-year-old child brides.
that's what
being
you're
a
here to
bad
debate,
thing.
bro. That's what you came to debate. Yes, that like of course. So yeah, they keep
The
saying
pearl
like here,
clutching.
these are arguments we want to know why, and your answer is because it's bad. Like yeah, they already know you think it's
Have
bad.
you
Like
not
you have to
listened to why I
explain.
explained it's bad? Because they cannot give consent. That is the entire purpose of my argument. I understand that maybe you're
why
dealing with
can
chat
they
and
not
not listening to the
consent?
conversation,
Why are
and
they?
that's fine.
I
But
hear
they
that.
cannot
Saying
consent.
things.
Okay.
I heard that. That's part of what I'm saying is that these are just very like surface level. Like they just can't consent. They just can't. There's like a whole lot more context. So like I would say it's the trauma that comes with it. Generally, people who engage in big age gaps are going to have a lot more trouble engaging in society later on in life. They're going to have more trouble in relationships. They're going to have more trouble with trusting people. They're going to have more trouble thinking that like people are after them. They're going to be more paranoid. Children who are at younger ages who have or who engage in relationships with bigger age gaps end up with a lot more problems and then are unable to engage in society. And so generally we build social norms and morals based on what helps us all engage with one another in the most efficient manner. And so that would be something that is inefficient and unhelpful and makes it hard for people to engage. Do you
I don't think you really believe that. If none of that stuff were true, you'd still say it's wrong to fuck kids.
why?
Even if they were like totally going to be fine when they grow up and they're going to be socially fine and all that, I think you would still feel like it's bad, wouldn't you?
Why?
I'm sorry. Are you contesting it?
If there's
I am
nothing
contesting that I
bad
would
that
think
will-
that something's bad if there's nothing bad. Yeah, I'm contesting that. Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm saying
that's
if all the things that
illogical.
you just listed, I think that you would think that it's bad because it's almost definitionally so that we consider somebody having sex with a child to be bad. Like when we think of things that are bad, there is something very emotional that we feel like inherently. I don't know any the reason why we're having this panel is because there's something deep inside most people that you don't even have to think about that knows that if somebody wants to fuck a 5-year-old, this is wrong.
Well, that's
Like we don't
fairly new in the age of human history. This is a fairly new concept. So generally, no, that's not like most of us have not
I'm gonna
thought
go
that
on a
way.
limb
But
and
us
say
here today do think that. Yes.
it's been like most societies historically have thought fucking 5-year-olds is a bad thing. I'm going to go out on a limb to say that, right? I don't have the research. I don't have a source in front of me, right? But yeah, I'm gonna make that bold claim that fucking 5-year-old is a bad thing and
could
has
make the
almost
bold
always
claim of
be
saying-
considered a bad thing.
But they were
could
talking about
say, "Oh,
marrying
slavery is
13-year-olds
very bad
earlier, and those are
thing."
things that like happen like in the Bible. Like those are things that
Yeah.
are that
Those
were
are things that
normalized for
happened
a
less
long
than
time.
100 years ago. My grandma was 14 when she got married.
Yeah, child brides were only recently like stigmatized in the age of
This
human
does
history.
sidestep
So
the point I
again,
was making. Just saying.
Sappho, go ahead.
Oh, I was just adding. Sorry.
Go ahead. No, you go ahead. Make your point, or go ahead and add on whatever you wanted to.
I was just saying that, using a modern lens on a topic that spans throughout history is very myopic. You can say slavery is bad now, but slavery still happens. It happened in the past and we condoned it, and stuff like that. But then like saying, "Oh, child brides is terrible," but then happened in the past. But then you don't say why it's bad. You're just saying it's bad.
Let me try. Okay, fair enough. Let me try to explain in the simplest terms I can why we have decided culturally, societally, and legally that child brides are a bad thing. Because again, it comes down to the concept of consent, informed consent, the ability to understand what it is you are signing up for when you say yes to a thing. We understand because of advances culturally and scientifically the trauma that comes to children right? When they engage in certain activities with adults, right? With people who prey upon them. We understand that children do not understand what marriage means, what sexual intimacy entails, and the full risks that they are signing up for when they engage in these activities, right? We have advanced so much that we have decided that, rightfully so, in my opinion, that this is the case. And we can look at all the things that Tom here listed, right? All the bad outcomes, right, that happen when these things are true. We can look at all of history to show like how repressed and oppressed child brides had been in the past, and we were saying, hey, that's not something we want. We believe that people are entitled to have a happy, productive life, and that this gets in the way of that. And so when we are grooming and forcing children, right, pressuring and coercing children to sign up to things that they do not understand and cannot consent to, that is unethical and, dare I say, evil.
I feel like you're
I
underestimating.
think you can say that about people in general. It just happens to be that children can't. I think it's evil no matter the age of the person. It just becomes inherently evil because children can't consent and understand the things. So I was just agreeing with Wick, just taking
At
it a
this
step further.
point, I have to ask, like, you know, at what age do you think that they genuinely can consent in your own
18.
viewpoint of it? Because, well, that's a little high, isn't it?
No, 18.
But what drew you to this conclusion?
Well, we have the scientific studies that I can cite on brain development, and we realize, right, that it isn't fully developed until about 25, but we still allow them to make certain decisions, like such say as go to war, right, and things like that. And because we allow them to go to war and we allow them to risk and ask them to risk their lives, then we can allow them to consent to things that might be harmful to them, such as sexual relationships with older individuals, as well as getting
I think
married.
there's a
And things like
conflict of
that.
interest
Can
in
I
that.
interject here?
Go ahead.
Okay, so you brought up like going to war and stuff. That stuff has been like the age where you can go to war has been 18 for years and years, even longer than child brides have been outlawed. So that's not really backed by like sources of like, you know, this is why we do that because, you know, brain development. We do that because that's just what we've done.
They asked me they asked me why I personally, right, consider it.
Yeah.
And that is my personal thing. I cannot speak for society thing, but the reason I cite 18 as the age is because, again, this is when we have the draft in America still, where boys have to sign up, and they have to be able to be not able, but they're required to sign up in case there is a draft that we can call upon them. And so because this is something that we ask of them as society, we make certain allowances for them, right, at this point. Now, when it comes to things like drugs and alcohol, like tobacco was recently raised to 21. Alcohol's been 21 for a while. It was reduced to 18. I believe in the 80s for a brief time, but we saw really bad outcomes come across because of that. A huge rise in drunk driving accidents among teenagers and things like that. And so we put it back. But when it comes to my personal morality here, is I say 18 because if we expect someone to go to die for their country, then they can fuck. We'll let them. There we go.
Did everybody here wait till they were 18 to have sex?
No.
No.
Just out of curiosity.
I waited until I was 21.
I mean, again,
On
we're
purpose?
talking about having sex with
Yes, on
somebody who
purpose.
is a full-grown adult, not necessarily just having sex in general, because the maturity
I lost my
levels are going to be
virginity to a
different.
34-year-old
So
when I was 14.
a lot
Sure,
of people
but when we're
gave
talking about things being
examples.
definitionally wrong based on the age, then it shouldn't matter how old the other person is. So there's something a little bit more happening there too. Like, so I think that like two 16-year-olds that have sex with each other, I think that it's going to be probably fine Like somebody might not like it as much as the other one or whatever. But even like, I think that like when the ages match, people don't have as much problem with it because it's not so much the sex that's happening there, it's the power dynamics and manipulation that's happening. So like, even if like we found out 2 13-year-olds had sex with each other, we're like, oh fuck, we really don't want them to do that. But we wouldn't feel like an atrocity had happened as though like a 40-year-old had sex with a 13-year-old, because there's something different happening here. So I just, this conversation has been kind of rolling along with like, what is your, like, at what age can you like actually deal with this and handle this? Like, it's not going to be nearly as traumatic if it's 2 people of the exact same age, because they're at the same kind of like level of development. They have similar power dynamics. And I just wanted to point that out.
Yeah,
So,
I believe that
Go ahead.
I believe that there should be laws protecting minors specifically who engage with other minors, because that's a part of our sexual development. I've taken plenty of development classes to know that exploring sexually is something that happens when puberty starts, and whether that happens with themselves, with other things or other people, that's it's just something that happens. It's natural. It is part of our development as humans.
But
I think there
society
should
has
be laws protecting that.
but society has a vested interest in keeping that from happening between a child and an adult.
Yeah, that is the exact point I'm trying to make. Between
So
children, continue.
to the people, so I guess I'm kind of getting tired of this, how it's standing right now. It seems like the pro maps are just asking the anti maps a lot of questions, and then we're just forced to respond to them, and then there's just more questions. So I'm gonna flip it around to the people that are pro map. You've already admitted prior in this panel that that no one here thinks that there's no trauma that comes from a map relationship. No one here said that they believe that there is no trauma. So with that, moving forward from that, right? Do you guys believe that there is trauma that is inherent to a relationship between 2 adults?
Yeah, there can be genuinely.
No, inherent.
Inherent?
Inherent?
I
Yes,
wouldn't say
Consider
inherent.
that in
It's,
the US,
it's
50% of
circumstantial.
marriages in divorce.
Okay, and
But
I
like,
said inherent too, right?
It's completely circumstantial.
okay,
Okay,
But
so
with
it's
some,
I
circumstantial.
believe.
yeah, with some minor
I need you
adult
to define
relationships,
inherent.
it's also circumstantial. Like with
I need
like
you.
Romeo and
That's
Juliet
not what was
laws.
stated prior.
I need you to describe what inherent means to you.
Sure, we'll
Okay,
define it. Give me 1 second.
go ahead. I do want to say something because I've been meaning to say this, and I meant to say
Definition
forever
of
ago.
inherent is
I had
existing in something as permanent, essential, or a characteristic attribute.
so 100% guarantee. No, there's not 100% guarantee in anything.
Okay.
I subscribe to the rules of chaos theory. I think there's random chance that I could get shot 30 times in the head and still walk away and do, I don't know, Gangnam Style. But you might say I'm inherently going to die. But chaos theory. That's
We could say it's
thing.
inherently painful.
What we can say is that there's going to be, in a large number of cases, and I'm going to subscribe to the idea that everybody here lives in the U.S., near the U.S. I don't, but it's just easier because most of you should, the U.S. has perhaps the highest divorce rates of 50%. Some countries do have higher, but it normally worldwide averages about 30. That is not a little bit of pain. That's a lot of pain. A divorce takes a lot of mental aptitude. It takes a lot out of a person financially, physically, mentally, emotionally. I would say that in a large majority of adult relationships, there is a lot of the time some kind of pain, an argument, a fight. And it can range from being small enough that it's socially acceptable, like, you argue in a relationship, that's accepted.
Okay.
What's not accepted is hitting, cutting, threatening. That is where we start to go from it being mildly traumatic to excessively traumatic. And I want to make some clear.
Okay,
When I
first
say
off,
trauma, I mean a
go ahead.
negative experience that affects your worldview in any way,
Okay,
no matter
so
how minor.
Okay, so first off, what you were talking about hitting, cutting, etc., and so on, that is abusive. Abuse does
That
carry
is
trauma.
abuse.
I'm sorry.
That is abuse. Yes, I was agreeing with you.
Okay, so yeah, it's abusive. So abuse carries trauma, and what I'm talking about when I speak of trauma is I'm talking about long-lasting trauma. I'm talking about people who are symptomatic of PTSD. I'm talking about long-lasting trauma that affects them for the majority of or the rest of their life. And that's what I'm speaking of when I'm talking about trauma. Not because I
So
fell
we're
off my
talking about
bike and
that.
scraped my knee. The idea, the idea that, and I guess I'll ask this before I just assume it. Do you think that a map relationship is inherently more traumatic than a adult-to-adult relationship for the child? I don't care about what it is for the adult. I don't care. It's for the child. For the child, do you think a map relationship is more traumatic than an adult-to-adult relationship?
Frankly, no. But that also depends. If it's a relationship with like an 8-year-old, yes. If it's a relationship with like a 15, 16-year-old, no. Because there needs to be an understanding that a relationship's a relationship at the end of the day. There's going to be relationships where an adult is groomed into it. For example, you find a woman you like at a bar and you start talking, you bring her home, you have sex, and then you guys get together. That brings the same amount of trauma as if you did the same thing to like a 17, 18-year-old.
No, it does not. No, it does not.
It does. Yes, it has. It has been proven
Okay,
time and time again.
prove it. Then give the study. Prove it.
I don't have it up at the moment.
Oh, you don't. Oh.
What were
The
the two
point
things
still-
being equated?
The point still stands without proof?
The point is there, and you can disagree. I'm not gonna like go and search up.
Of course you're
specific
not.
page at
I
this
didn't think you were going to begin with because it doesn't exist.
You can, I mean, I can search in my history. I have it somewhere. But what I'm trying to say is that there is inherent trauma with both. Yes, there is. I think what needs to be understood. Okay, I've been meaning to say this, and it needs to be made clear. Consent shouldn't be a right. It should be a privilege. In a perfect society, there's times when a 16-year-old can move out the house, get a job, get married. And then there's times when there's a 23-year-old that provides no real usefulness to society. She robs people, she kills people. There's people who don't deserve the rights to be able to consent. I'm not saying like they should just be raped. I'm saying they should not be able to have sex. Sex offenders, child molesters, murderers, they shouldn't have consent. People who are mentally able to should. And I feel like there should be a test that everybody needs to take. Again, in a perfect society, this isn't really possible, at least not with current circumstances, but in a perfect society, that's how it should have been handled. That's how it should be handled. That's how our ancestors attempted to do it.
Are
With-
you advocating for something like IQ tests then to be given
Yes,
before?
exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. But I feel like there's also some people who need to be stripped. Because again, it's not a right, it's a privilege. If you rape somebody, if you kill somebody, if you hunt down children, if you hunt down adults, if you hunt down anybody to sexually or physically or whatever abuse them, murder, things like that, you should be stripped of that right. It is a privilege, and
Okay.
it should be treated as such.
So just to kind of touch on this point, it's a little off topic, but I think it bears on the larger conversation we're having, so I'll address this, right? When someone does something that legally or societally would determine like they have lost their privileges to certain things, we don't strip them of their consent, though. We strip them of their access to certain things by putting them in prison, by in some cases the death penalty, right? But that they still have the right, and they still should have certain rights. Like you don't lose, for example, you don't lose your First Amendment rights simply because you're in prison, right? You don't lose all your rights by violating the law, nor should you. I don't think we should strip even the worst of us from every single right that they have. Even the worst offender, the worst person has a right to a certain amount of dignity, and I'll argue that. It is tangentially related, though, but I just wanted to put a pin in that because I don't like that kind of demonizing talk where we demonize criminals and things like that. We can recognize that some people need to be removed from society, right? But we don't have to enjoy it or celebrate it.
Okay,
I do like what you're saying.
we're gonna change topics again. I'm sorry, but so here's the next one. What is a solution if maps have to be integrated into society? What is the best possible way to integrate them into society, and what are measures that you would be okay with or accept to prevent them from offending in a hypothetical where, say, some form of like therapy or treatment isn't like the most effective form of treatment? Are there any alternatives that you would support to lower offense rates? Basically, that's the
Can I
concept.
speak on this first?
Go ahead, Siren.
Regulate.
Okay. So I have thought about this for so long now. I have been in college for mental health, like going into the mental health field for a few years now. And ever since I first started, I've been thinking about this exact thing. So in a hypothetical, in my perfect hypothetical vision of how I want things to go and how I expect things to go, is we destigmatize certain words, certain phrases, certain attributes of people, and start correcting misinformation and teaching that paraphilias, like pedophilia, often come from trauma. They are sexual deviances that stem from sexual trauma. And we need people, especially minors, to understand that when you start experiencing, like intrusive thoughts, because that is the biggest part of having a paraphilia. It's the intrusive thoughts. It's constantly being reminded that this is something that you have. Intrusive thoughts do not define who you are, and we need to teach people who could possibly have paraphilias that it doesn't mean that you're a bad person. It means that you've just gone through some stuff, and that if you branch out, if you reach out, help is here. And that's another part of destigmatization that I personally, like online, I advocate for immensely. I advocate for destigmatization because the amount of stigma surrounding having these attractions to begin with causes people to not want to seek help. It causes them to suppress it, and that will make it worse. That will make the intrusive thoughts worse. That will make the self-loathing, which is a huge part of the diagnosis for a paraphilic disorder, much, much worse, and will make offending much more likely.
Okay, so I can agree with that, right, to a point, right? I think that we should destigmatize seeking help for the illnesses that you have. I think that if someone is going to therapy, right, is getting treatment, right, we should not, beat them up or call them bad names or these things like that. But we should be aware that they do have a condition and there should be certain restrictions placed upon where they can go and what they can do. We do not want them working in schools. We do not want them working as babysitters. We don't want them around kids, right? We want to be able to track them. It's a hard line to draw because we don't want I want my ideal is to restrict their freedoms as little as possible in order to ensure that children are protected. I am okay with restricting their freedoms, even though normally I would be against it because society's duty to protect kids and their propensity to harm kids is so high. And so in this case, for this, I say, look, if they're getting treatment, right? If they're on if they're on registry or being tracked and things like that. We should not deperson them. We should celebrate their getting treatment, but again, we don't want them around kids.
Okay,
Period.
Rose, go ahead. You're in chat asking to give your opinion on this. Go ahead.
Yeah, so when it comes to destigmatization, I think there are some things that should be stigmatized, and I think that this is one of them. I think this idea that destigmatization on its own is just an inherently bad thing, I highly disagree with. And also, as someone with OCD, I'm not a fan of this comparison to intrusion of thoughts. Like when I have intrusive thoughts, I'm not a threat to anybody. It's stuff that I can't control. I don't desire those things. But these people, these are things they desire. They might not want to intend on these actions, but they're different from intrusive thoughts because they're getting some kind of gratification. Someone with OCD and intrusive thoughts gets no gratification from their thoughts. They're horrifying, and they bring them a lot of distress. Maps and that stuff is not the same. That's all I want to say.
All right. Now, Wick, I have a quick question for you. Since you come at things a lot of the time from a freedom of speech article, do you believe that maps should be able to openly advocate for things even if they're harmful? And do you support their right to advocate for things that might be extremely egregious?
Yes, this is why I'm on this panel right now, even though I knew what the subject was. I think they should be able to be heard. Their voices they should be able to speak and advocate, even if I think they're dead wrong. But I think that this is a good example of the power of freedom of speech because I think so far, at least, we have pretty successfully demonstrated the error in their argument, and I think that we have made convincing counterpoints. Whereas, had we not chosen to engage in this discussion at all, we would not know what they think, right? And I think that's important. And B, had we come across this argument being made out in the wild, so to speak, we wouldn't have, or we would have less ability to combat it. And so that's why I think that, again, even people who are pro maps, right, should be able to be advocated for and listened for, and we should hear them out. But at the end of the day, I don't think their arguments are convincing. I don't think that it bears with the data that we have, and nor do I think that it is helpful to society. And so for all those reasons, I will stand against it. And here I am. So.
All right.
I saw Tom. Sorry, D. I saw Tom raise his hand a little bit earlier.
Yeah, that's actually who I was about to call.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that.
Yeah, I wanted to answer the question. I think pretty much anything that's not actually interaction with a child, if we found out that these things were actually helpful to lowering the amount of children that were being abused, I would be in favor of these things. So I know there's a meme about child sex robots, right? If that was actually helpful for maps or for pedophiles to where they would actually be less likely to interact with children, I would be in favor of that, though I don't think that that's actually the case. And I think that or even things what do they call it, cartoon porn or things like this, if these things actually were helpful in any way, just about anything that isn't actual interaction with children or isn't actually abusive to children, if these things lower the amount of abuse, then I would be in favor of pretty much anything.
But at what cost though? Because vaping reduces smoking rates, but we should still ban vaping.
No, we should not ban vaping.
No.
I don't think we're unanimous on that at all, as somebody who's been vaping this entire time.
Yes, I've literally been vaping this whole time.
You're comparing it a unanimous thing to a nearly unanimous thing to a very nuanced and heavily contested thing.
So can I drop sort of a hot take real quick?
Yeah, can whoever's breathing into their mic mute it though, because it's not.
That is Zahim.
Zim, can you mute?
I fixed it. Sorry.
Okay. All right, go ahead.
Anyways, am I allowed to drop a hot take here?
Go ahead.
My hot take of the day is I don't think that trauma is inherently bad. And I feel that it's just a part of life experience. And to say that something is inherently traumatic isn't necessarily a bad thing on the scale of morality.
So what if it's my goal to cause what you call inherent life experience to other people?
Wait, trauma is definitionally harm.
That's not life experience. No,
That's what it
Wait,
means.
so-
Okay.
because that'll depend
Wait.
on
Can I?
what
Can
you
I?
would consider harmful.
Okay. Wait.
Yamato speaking.
Can I say something? Right. What about like trauma that leads to someone doing like believing something like say if a white person were to get robbed by a black person, right? It would lead them to think like that this group is inherently bad, and it starts to lead to like down the pipeline of like racism or something like that. Wouldn't that be considered harm, right? Would you consider that like a net positive? I mean, a
Well,
net negative to.
Isn't that
I can't believe I said positive. A net negative to, what
well? Isn't that just how like racism started? Isn't that like just a logical progression of thinking where it's almost Pavlovian, where you think, oh, this thing hurt me, and then you start to consider that thing a bad thing. That's like the most
Yes, but then you start
fundamental.
basing your fears like you could have your next door neighbor who's an old elderly black lady, and all of a sudden you just start hating her for no reason.
I think this is a bad comparison inherently because
No. How is it a bad comparison?
no, I'm on your side on this. I don't agree with the take that you're, or with the stance necessarily, because the stigma that, like, pedophiles have specifically is a lot different than racism. Also, the idea that
she never gave a description of what type of trauma was bad. She
yeah,
just said
I know,
trauma was
exactly. That's what I'm saying.
I'm saying that
No,
trauma
wait.
isn't
Can we
bad.
just give an example of something that's not bad, that's traumatic? Like I feel like we're just starting to build arguments off of this like terrible, faulty foundation.
Okay, well,
Can you give me a single example of a thing that's good and traumatic?
Or define trauma
let's
where
say
it's not
you are
harm.
Well, no, their definition, they stated their definition of trauma earlier, and it's anything that gives you a bad aspect on life. So anything that gives you a negative aspect in your life is defined as trauma to them.
Then what does harm mean if that doesn't fit? Are we just making up words?
That's why I made it. Well,
say-
that's why I made the example.
I think I'm gonna
Let's say,
jump in
for
and add my
example, you're in
2
a
cents for a quick second.
you're in a traumatic relationship, one where you experience abuse. That could lead to you in the future being able to recognize these sorts of traumatic things.
Because you were harmed.
So
yeah,
That's still
that
trauma.
that creates a self-defense.
But
Okay,
pain
we're
is
talking
also
around
the
it.
trauma.
Bad
if I
things
may.
can have good outcomes too,
pain
but it's
isn't
still
necessarily
bad. It's still
bad.
harmful.
If I may, the concept here, like being talked about, right? Like, does trauma build character? It's anti-fragility. If you guys know what that is when bad things happen to you, you become stronger for it. There is some truth to that, but there is a much difference. There are levels of trauma. Like, for example, me getting my arm cut off is traumatic in a way that is unique. Whereas if I just had a bad day at school or flunked my test at school, that would not have the same level of impact. So when we talk about trauma, trauma, like, it's necessary to growth to a certain extent, but that does not mean, right, that we should seek it out nor condone it when it happens. We just recognize that life isn't perfect, and just like inoculating ourselves to disease and things like that, some trauma is necessary to be a good person. We have to recognize that some levels of trauma are just unacceptable in any capacity, and when it comes to minors having sex with adults, that is on the level of getting your arm cut off.
Well, not even just that. We're talking about trauma that comes from abuse. And so right now, like, you would have to be like advocating for the abuse in the first place for the trauma to come afterwards. So like the trauma
Well,
in and of itself is
considering-
not the only thing. It's the abuse that comes beforehand that would be more so the problem, right?
To give a
Well,
more
isn't that
like
exactly what we're doing here?
Well,
That's what you're
not if
doing
we're
here.
talking about trauma, right? Because if we're talking about whether or not trauma can be good, sure, trauma can have some good outcomes to it. But when we're talking about trying to stop the abuse so that the trauma doesn't happen in the first place, like, it's the abusive aspect that would more so need to be debated then.
If
So it doesn't
something
make
bad
sense for us to
happens and
debate
it's
the
overall
trauma.
good, we don't call it trauma. that we say like this is a good thing that happened and it had some bad things associated with it. When we say something is traumatic, we're saying this is a bad thing that happened that has bad consequences. Even if there's some good things in there, we're talking about a bad thing that happened.
The cons outweigh the pros heavily.
Yeah, that's when then that's what it is. It's a con.
Then I simply do not see how the map relationship is inherently traumatic or traumatic at all.
It wouldn't be inherent, but we're just saying
wouldn't
that
be
overall we
traumatic.
think it. We're not saying that it is inherently traumatic, but that it is most likely to be traumatic because of the initial abuse.
I don't think that any relationship with that amount of age gap, especially between a minor and adult, can be completely considered non-traumatic, because there has to be some level of dependency that the minor has on the adult in the relationship. And that is, I've been in that situation.
Well, even on
I
top
was
of that,
groomed several times. I've been in that situation. I know how bad it can be.
We can look at like very violent like rape situations and see that not everybody comes out with horrible trauma afterwards, right? But we wouldn't say
Right.
therefore it's okay for people to violently rape somebody else, right?
Exactly. That is my exact point.
In any relationship, whether it be with a minor and adult or someone who gets super drunk and they're preyed upon, any relationship where consent is violated, right, is something that we need to consider harmful, because it is. It has bad outcomes almost every time. Maybe not every time, but almost every time. Just like I could jump off a cliff, right? And some people have done this. They skydived without a parachute and they survived. They didn't get killed, but that's not something we should condone or point to, because these are outliers and they could be safely ignored.
Then I feel like we need to recognize outliers.
We really shouldn't recognize outliers, because that's like the entire point of them being outliers. They're not conducive to the entire experience. They're not universal.
We don't make rules based off the outliers. We make rules based off the standard, and then
Based
we
off of the
deal with the
majority.
outliers as they come.
And once again, if you, right, are an adult and you pursue, or a minor pursues you, you have a duty to say no or to not pursue, because again, the chances of you doing harm and abusing that person are just sky high. They're sky high, gang. And so we say that this is both socially unacceptable as well as legally unacceptable. And we cannot, to kind of tie this back to the overarching point of the whole panel, this is why destigmatizing maps is a very bad idea, because this is a behavior that we want to dissuade people from engaging in, because it is wrong, it is harmful, and it is traumatic to the victims of those who are subject to these types of relationships.
Here, can I ask Sanguine a question? Let's say that I go and I aim a gun at you and I pull the trigger, but I miss. And I just barely miss your head. Should we just say like, well, now there's this exception, so even though it's kind of attempted murder, it didn't really have the bad outcome that we were afraid of, so it's okay now. And there's no immoral issue with this, there's no legal issue with this. We're just gonna say because he missed, it's all good. Would you say that?
I wouldn't charge that. No, I would say that's perfectly okay.
You would say it's perfectly okay. So it would be an outcome on a case-by-case basis, not necessarily a principle that would stop the bad outcome ahead of time.
No.
Okay.
You know,
explain if you say no, because what you just said was yes, and then you turned around and said no.
I meant to say yes. Did I say no?
So
I
so
thought you
you
were saying
believe
no.
so you believe getting someone shooting at someone else, even if they intend to hit, it's okay if they miss. There should be no repercussions if they miss.
Yeah.
That is the dumbest argument I've ever heard.
I have an argument here, right? Everybody
I've been
here
on panels with you. That's a big claim. They should understand the weight of what you just fucking said. I've heard some shit alongside you, Sprout.
Go
Look
ahead.
at that.
Extreme.
Oh, okay. Video feed.
So, it's D&D. I did check DMs, please.
I feel like everyone inherently goes, "Oh, this is traumatic. This is traumatic." 100% of the time, it's always going to be traumatic. I'm 16. If I want to flirt with a 20-some-year-old, I can. If I want to have sex with one, I can. That is my right, and I'm conscious of that being what I, as a person, want to do. That is what I should have that right. I'm consciously able to make that decision. I have made it clear by being here, by stating my opinions, by making my arguments. I should be able to love, date, do whatever the fuck I want if I am if I'm mentally capable of, which I clearly am. I'm not saying everybody is. That's
Hold
never
on.
been the statement.
Hold on. I'm really sorry. Hold on.
One second.
Did you just say? Wait, did he just say he's 16?
Let him finish. Let him finish.
No. Hold on. Did he just say he's 16? Is he actually 16?
Wait.
Yes, this person is 16 years old.
I don't think I want to have this conversation with a 16-year-old on.
Yeah, I'm not doing this. I was under the understanding this was all adults.
Hold on.
I've said it from the start.
I'm sorry. I did not hear that. I apologize.
Wait,
AM?
Yes. You said that?
You said you were an AAM supporter. You didn't say that you were.
No,
an
I did
AAM.
say I was.
That's what I was under the
AM
impression.
Yeah, that's what I was under the.
That's what I've been saying. That's
Okay.
how I've been saying
You see,
it.
this is a
That's
prime
what I've
example of
been
what we've been talking about this entire time about how adults being, talked about or talked to by teens saying no. We're saying no. We're adults and we're saying no. We don't want to have this conversation with you.
If you want me to leave, I'll leave.
No,
That's
I'm gonna
blatant
bounce,
statement.
gang. I'll see you guys later. Thanks for inviting me on. I love you all.
Firework.
And have a great day.
Yeah.
Thank you for your time, Wick. Yeah, it seems like if you're actually like under the age of 18, like we're so sorry. We might have to excuse you from the conversation as well.
Please.
I thought it was the map advocate, not AAM advocate, not a.
I've said from the start, I'm an AAM. That is what I've said from the beginning.
What does AAM mean?
Adult attractive minor. Yeah,
That's what I've said
if
from the get-go.
I'm
Yeah,
sorry,
most-
but
most minors
if
at
he's
some
staying
point
on,
are
I have to
attracted
leave.
to
I'm not going to
Yeah, I'm
continue
really
this
sorry,
conversation
guys.
with the
Can we
child.
cut this here?
If you want me gone, I will leave. That is the blanket statement.
I
think
didn't. Wait, what?
It's
You
nothing
called-
personal, but
Yeah.
I think for everybody
Oh.
it's not personal. But yeah, like nobody's
please.
comfortable having this conversation with you in the room.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
I thought AM.
I say that with a lot of compassion.
This was. I didn't do my due diligence here. I apologize.
Holy shit. Okay.
Okay, I did not do my due diligence there. Sorry.
Yeah, I apologize to the panelists for that. All right. Yeah, so we might have to go into. Is it okay if they go into closing conversation? Not closing conversation, closing comments, or
Yeah,
think
go
that's
ahead
a
and go
really-
into closing comments. Yo, I am so sorry, Sprouticus and Tom and Elder. I apologize.
It's all good.
Wait, I didn't even know. Holy shit.
That slipped
You
by
didn't
my
let me
smooth
know.
smooth
Holy-
brain. That slipped by my smooth
As
brain.
long
I'm
as it's
so
long as
sorry.
it's very clear that I was under the influence when being invited to this panel, this is all going to be adults. And that's the way I participated in this panel.
Because my easy out is I was late. I didn't even hear them say that shit. I didn't hear nothing about AMA. By the way, sorry for
I didn't
being
hear
late.
anything about AMA at all.
Yeah, I heard I
I'm
heard
attracted
AAM advocate, and my mind went to like an adult who.
Yeah.
Fuck my. Oh god.
That's exactly what they said at the get-go.
to be
I
fair,
didn't
They
really-
said-
AAM advocate and an AAM themselves are different.
They
things.
specifically
that's
said
different.
they specifically said at the very beginning because I looked up AAM after they said it. They specifically said that they're an advocate of AAM and maps.
They support
Like
it.
so, like
Mhm.
that's why I didn't think anything of it when they said that they're an advocate for it. So
Okay.
God.
Well, that's one way to end this.
Moving on,
Yeah,
I guess.
I can go first.
Well,
so
I bet you people are going to talk about this panel now. So I mean, there's that. We get to
Holy
rewatch this
shit.
on Chud Logic tomorrow morning for
Holy
sure. When
fuck.
he's
Oh,
raking you over the
shit.
coals.
Oh man, thank God I reached out
Are you
to
guys
the
cut?
people. Thank God I reached out to the right
So
people.
big.
Oh God.
yeah, I was worried I was gonna get muted as I
Oh
keep
my
telling you. I'm
God.
like, no, stop, hold on. I'm like, please don't mute me, but like, let me get through this first. All right, I can go first on closing statements.
Yeah, close. Sorry. Go ahead, closing.
So yeah, so I am in favor of like destigmatizing non-offending pedophiles, meaning like I want to make it to where they're capable of coming out and saying, yes, I have these predilections. If they want to get help, especially if they want others around them to help them and want others to be able to keep an eye on them. And, you know, like I was a drug addict for a while. I needed people to keep an eye on me. I needed people to help me. I needed to be able to come out and tell people that I was a drug addict so that they were able to do those things for me. I think that would be good for non-offending pedophiles, but relationships with between adults and minors is something that has negative outcomes because of the society that we live in and because of the way that we've organized it, and it's just not a good thing. Anybody who goes through these things will end up having trauma and a lot of trouble living the rest of their lives, and so for that reason I would be completely against destigmatizing or legalizing any of those things.
Hey, Tom, good on you for recovery, my guy.
Appreciate it.
I don't have to know you to sincerely say I'm proud of you.
Yeah, I appreciate it. It's about 13 years. I was heroin addict for a long time, got out of prison, and stayed clean since. So.
That's what the fuck is up, dude.
Congrats.
Nice
I got
job.
Elder, go ahead with your closing statement.
I think that anybody who thinks that we shouldn't make it easier for MAPS to get help so that they don't offend children are prioritizing their own personal feelings over the safety of children. And I think that's totally fucked. I think that when it comes to things like this, we have to be super aware of what the facts and data are, because number one priority is keeping children safe. I don't have to be a father to feel like this. I don't think that you have to have kids, but if you have kids, you know that sometimes you have to do things that are right for your kid that don't feel great. Sometimes the correct thing to do isn't the easy thing to do. And I think that's a situation that we find ourselves in with this. And I think that it's wholly irresponsible to take your feelings about something and say, well, the facts don't matter here. I guess I'm just going to risk more kids being abused. We need to understand that they are people and people need help when they're dealing with certain things. And in almost every instance, it's not their fault. So we don't need to be punishing somebody for something that they feel inherently. They need to get help. However, we should stigmatize people choosing not to get help. I think that's pretty much it.
Okay, Spraticus, what are your closing thoughts?
I don't think my position has moved at all in this conversation. I think that maps have no place in society unless they're actively trying to get help. And in that case, there should be restrictions to what they're allowed to do. But other than that, I think that if you are a map and you are getting help, I'm very happy for you. I wish you a successful recovery, and I hope nothing but the best for the rest of your life. But I don't think that mental illness, including the amount of harm that it can exist to children because of it, deems good for the existence inside society.
All right, Rose.
Yeah, so I agree. I think that MAPS should definitely get help and therapy. And I don't think that we should stigmatize that aspect, because it's important that we get these people into those situations. Absolutely. There's something else I wanted to address, right? Obviously, at some point early in the conversation, if somebody is like a kid and they're like okay with being in a relationship with someone who's older, that's not okay, right? If someone doesn't mind that they're a minor, that's a huge problem. You should mind. Their brain isn't developed yet, and which is why they don't understand what's going on is exploitative. I've had situations where I was younger and I didn't understand why it was wrong for people to message me a certain way. So it kind of bothers me to see people act like, oh, well, they said it was fine. Like, no, people use that as like a defense for their behavior or trying to justify it in their mind. I think that when it comes to wanting to improve these situations in the future, there are certain things that we should do. And there are certainly healthier ways to go about this. I don't think people on Twitter saying that all pedophiles should like die and shit. I don't think that does helps anything. You're kind of just virtue signaling at that point. But that being said, it is reprehensible behavior, and anything that we can do to lower the number of offenses is a net positive, I think.
Beast.
All right, Sirens, your closing statements.
Yeah, my opinions definitely have not changed. I'm still very, very heavy into like recovery and understanding the truth of paraphilias and whatnot. Yeah, therapy should definitely be more destigmatized, more accessible. Yeah, and I just want to say thank you to everyone for, I know like this is a very serious, emotional topic, but everyone really respected each other, and I really appreciate that. I've had very bad debates like this before, but this one wasn't. I respect it. It was nice.
And Sanguine, go ahead and give your closing thoughts.
Hi, yes. So, my closing thoughts are, in summary, I don't believe that crimes can be committed on the internet. I think that anything that happens on the internet is pure thoughts, and sexual arousal and pleasure all happens in the brain, which makes them thoughts. The largest sex organ you have is indeed your brain, and therefore policing anything sexual is inherently policing thought. And that would mean that we are all committing thought crimes in the process of these quote unquote immoral acts. So, what I'm saying here is it is literally 1984. No crimes can be committed on the internet because it is pure thought. Any crime you can think of that you can commit on the internet, you have to do something physically. You want to buy drugs on the internet? Somebody has to ship those drugs in order for it to be a crime. Obviously.
What about stalking or harassment?
That doesn't affect the victim.
Stalking and harassment do
Doxing?
affect the victim.
Doxing?
Stalking? No.
Doxing?
Doxing isn't stalking.
Hacking, stealing data. I mean, it's a very silly thing that crimes can't happen on the internet. It totally can.
No.
Revenge porn.
Sexual harassment can happen online.
Revenge porn.
You can find people's addresses on phone books.
Sanguine, why is harming people bad?
So
why is harm bad? What does harm mean?
Well, harm is actually part of the same coin as love. Love and harm are very much the same thing, because all emotions are very philosophically two sides of the same coin, really. And if you really want to get deep into it, emotions don't matter that much. They don't contribute, to the reality, because everyone's realities are all the same, right? They're all are all different. None of them are the same. Not a single one is the same. They're all different, right? And so after you take away like all input information, that's nothing. And that's your reality. But then anything you take in is your reality. So you can only think of things that you have experienced and go based off of that. So if you've never experienced something, there's not a single way you could imagine that. There's no possible route you could take to coming up with something that has not happened.
Okay, but take it from
You just
someone
said
who
a bunch
has.
of stuff.
Yeah,
It's
take it from someone who has experienced stuff like that. It's bad. I've been groomed. I've been in relationships. I've been in a relationship where I think I was 15 going on 16 years old when a 21-year-old messaged me and told me that it was perfectly okay because, hey, if we were, both in high school, it would have been an acceptable age gap.
I lived with a 34-year-old who raped me daily.
I don't think we need to play the Pain Olympics in the closing statements here.
No, that's where this convo ends. We're not getting into like the trauma Olympics here. I'm sorry, that's not something I'm comfortable.
Okay, bringing it back to my point though. the whole if you haven't experienced it, you don't know that it's bad argument is ridiculous because people have experienced it and they know that it's bad. I know that it's bad. And people who
You
haven't
only know
experienced
that's
it
bad
should.
because you've been told it's bad.
That's not true. That's not true at all.
Wait. I think we're just like, do we really need to let somebody sit here and tell somebody that a bad thing they went through isn't bad? Is that what the purpose of this panel is here?
I'm not letting that happen.
No, I disagree. If you believe that there's no harm committed, you're entitled to that opinion. You have to be able to defend it in a debate, right? But if you are going to state that there's harm, you can measure harm, you've had measurable harm, whatever it might be, right? I think that's a equally as valid response as whatever perspective you hold.
I'm just saying
Anyway,
it's possible.
anyway, thank you guys for coming to the panel. It has definitely been interesting. I can't wait to get slandered by Chud Logic tomorrow morning. This is going to be fantastic for my career.
Dude,
Anyway,
Subaru has a lot of Chud content.
Look,
Before
I
we go,
ran
can I
panels
plug?
for a long time. I know it's like you just want to get people. You're just happy to get people to say yes. You're just trying to fill them in. So I do not blame you all that much. I don't blame that kid. It's just a sucky situation. So
I just want to make this announcement here before we all leave that most of your favorite streamers will be streaming on YouTube exclusive tomorrow morning. So make sure you look for them on YouTube, not on Twitch.
Well, what's up with that? Protest?
They wouldn't be able to play this VOD on Twitch.
Oh,
yeah.
I see. I see.
Well,
before
actually,
we go, can I
think we
plug
can
real quick?
yeah. Okay, everyone, go ahead and plug your websites. We'll start with let's start with Sirens, and we'll go backwards this time.
Yeah, I just have my Twitter. I already talked about it in the beginning. I'm good.
Sanguine.
Yes, I'm on Twitter as well at Sanguine Sappho. Yeah, that's a plug.
All right, Rose Malay, go ahead.
All right, I'm youtube.com/c/rosemulet, ROSEMULET. I make pretty interesting videos. I think you should follow me. My Twitter is the real Rose Mulet, but there's no E in the, so it's real Rose Mulet or whatever. I make highly controversial tweets. You guys should check me out. I'm pretty fun.
All right, up next is Tomfoolery.
Yeah, my name's Tom. I go by Tom Foolery. I'm Tom Foolery Show on YouTube. That's 3 different words, Tom Foolery Show. I stream. I do video essays. I do a ton of debates. I've done panels and all sorts of stuff. I believe I'm talking to Sanguine after this, and we're going to have like a more in-depth debate about this subject. So, yeah, come check me out over there.
All right, Sprout, go ahead.
Yeah, you can find me at twitch.tv/thesproutacus or twitter.com/thesproutacus.
Elder.
I'm Elderdrazi. I make a lot of different stuff. I think I'm known for being super honest and willing to bite any bullets. But tomorrow, or on Friday, I'm going to be talking with Smeth about polyamory. I think I'm going to dual stream that on YouTube and Twitch. It's Elderdrazi on both of them. But I'm mostly known for content about and with Mr. Girl. And but I got a lot more stuff coming out in the near future. I just mostly wanted to plug the thing with Smith because we get compared a lot, and I think people are going to see the differences between us on Friday pretty heavily. And also in the future, it's supposed to be doing a stream with Rose as well.
Big W, Rose Malay is incredibly based.
Wait, what stream are we doing together?
We've talked about it a couple times. When I went to talk to you the first time, you were very sleepy, and you forgot that we even talked. I was like, okay, we'll just talk when you're more awake.
Can you just DM me and let's set that up? I forgot about that. DM me.
Yeah, no problem. I plan on doing that.
Rose Malay did not consent to the stream.
No, I
so.
do. I'm excited. I'm up to do it. I just forgot it was happening. So DM me right now.
She forgets about debates
that
fairly
wasn't like a
often.
weird shot or anything. I had full faith that we were still trying to set this up. I was just waiting because
Yeah,
the
no, I
holidays.
agree. I forget about things, but I'm 100%
Yeah, no
on
worries.
board. Let's do it. Sorry.
Hell yeah.
Now she did consent, so you can now do the stream.
Sprout is
All
a
right.
funny motherfucker.
Agreed.
Oh, and I want to say it's Sirens verse. You said thanks for everybody being here. This is weird. This is a fucking Wednesday for me, okay? This is like half of my fucking conversations. If you've ever seen anything I make, like this is
I do not consent.
not that big a fucking deal.
I came here instead of going to the gym. I usually go to the gym 6 times a week, one rest day. And instead of going to the gym, I came here. So now my Sunday, instead of I go to church, I go to the gym. So thanks, guys.
Chad
welcome.
signaling based.
Anyway, with that all being said, we're going to go transition on into the Brunch Bash wrap-up show. Again, before we do that, though, follow Taj at Taji Politics or at Bars and Joysticks on Twitch. Follow Black Yamoto on Twitter and Twitch. I should probably be linking him on my personal Twitter, which you can find linked down below. I'll also be shouting out everyone who came on the panel. Huge thank you to everyone for being here. We'll be having a cryptocurrency panel in about 2 weeks. And then after that, we're going to be doing a red pill panel. And following that, we'll be doing BLM versus Nazis, essentially. So got some
Nice.
fantastic panels
Dude,
coming.
I'm a Nazi too if you need one.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
What?
Oh my gosh.
What?
That was a joke. /J/S. Sarcasm. Mood.
Oh,
no,
God.
sorry.
Oh, my
It's a
God.
lot easier to
everything
make
else that
those
you've
jokes
said
when you
this
didn't
entire
have the most
time,
contentious opinion on the
Okay.
panel.
Honestly, I was not surprised
Sorry.
when they said that, and I just kind of went along with it. I'm like, oh, well, I guess we're here now.
Yeah.
All right,
I mean, the
appreciate
last
it,
guy
guys.
was a Nazi, so
Have a good night.
Have a good one.
Have a fantastic night.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. All right. I gotta burn the VOD. I'm gonna take this down, delete it. And I will start a new stream in just a little bit, and then we will talk to a map. So, I'll be back in just a bit.